him. But again, he knew that with what the deep state was doing, what the D's were doing, what the fake news was doing, he could turn them on them. Just like when he said, okay, come for my taxes, it's an audit. And they kept pushing, going all the way to the Supreme Court. And now we can get taxes from anyone, from the foundations, from the NGOs, from their spouses. He did the same thing here. He tricked them. And now we can release the Epstein files, just like nobody's above the law. So again, when the time is right, just like Russian collusion, the time was right now. He has the leverage. He has the power. It was the right time, the right moment to start to release this information. When the time is right, you're going to see that Epstein information is going to be released. It's going to basically cement everything that these people have done in the past. And this is going to be very, very damaging for all these people. Actually, you won't even hear from these people. They might in the beginning, but eventually as it keeps coming out and people start to see pictures and maybe some videos, you're going to see that everyone is quiet, almost like with Russian collusion. There's a couple people still trying to talk about Russian collusion, like Brennan, Clapper. I think they written an op-ed in New York Times, but this is not going to work out for them. The fake news, they're trying to stay away from it as best they possibly can because they know they've been pushing the grand conspiracy as truth. And now they have to go back on everything they said, especially those people that received the Pulitzer Prize. So as of right now, this is just the first phase. I mean, you think this is the end? Oh, no. This is the first phase. This is just going to get a lot worse for them. Just like it's getting a lot worse out in Gaza with this whole idea that there's no food getting to the people of Palestine. And you could see that this is the way the terrorists work. You have Gaza, those individuals putting out stories and the fake news, they just run with it and then they use their influencers to push this information. I mean, look what the New York Times put out. They had a malnutrition baby and they tried to pass this baby off as, look, see, the kids are starving. But this kid had a disease, had nothing to do with what's going on there. It's a fake story, just like everything else. Stephen Miller put this out and said, did Axios just use the same mother and child 5 minutes ago that the New York Times had to offer a correction on? Sure looks like it. Here's the other photo the New York Times cropped. Sure looks like the same woman. Is starvation so bad in Gaza that the American media can only find one mother with a child with another illness willing to pose for photographs? So the question, I guess, to Axios is, why does your media outlet run today with a photograph of a woman and a child that New York Times had to backtrack on yesterday? So that is very interesting. Again, the deep state players, they're running a state-funded terrorist area. They're putting out terrorist information. And basically now you're starting to see the truth of the matter. It's almost like with Syria, when they're like, oh, Assad's gassing his people. Why in the world would Assad gas his own people? Wouldn't it be the terrorists in that country that were gassing the people of Syria that weren't going along with them? I mean, really, it's logical thinking. So what's very interesting is that there was a video that was released, and it was of a hostage. And this individual, Avatar David, appeared emaciated in a clip that his family approved for publication. So this individual, David, was kidnapped during the Nova Music Festival during the Hamas PIG terror onslaught of October 7, 2023. This means he's been in captivity for over 660 days. In the new footage, David is seen in a tunnel with a ceiling roughly as high as he is tall, crossing off dates on a calendar on the tunnel's wall. He is unkempt, unshaven, and appears skeletal even in comparison with the February video, which was filmed during the last ceasefire hostage deal with Hamas. So this individual looks like he's starving. Do you see New York Times putting this out? Where are all the stories? Where's all the people protesting saying, hey, this is a person that's taken hostage. They've been in captivity for 660 days. So I think that tells you everything you need to know. And I think the deep state players, the Ds, they're going to be putting out all of these propaganda stories, because again, think about it. Think about all the protesters. Who do you think's paying these people? Who do you think's putting out these stories? Who do you think is driving all of this? It was almost when you look at Ukraine. In the very beginning, they were telling you Russia's bombing a school, a hospital. Well, again, the neo-Nazis, what did they do? They set up shop there. They did it on purpose. This is how they push the propaganda. They don't care if these people live or die. They're terrorists. So once again, we could see it. It's the same exact playbook over and over and over. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is that we could see that there was an individual, Dmitry Medvedev, and this is a former Russian president. He currently serves as the deputy chair of the country's Security Council. He made a reference to atomic apocalypse in written remarks about the Ukraine war and standoff with Washington. And Trump says, well, when you mention the word nuclear, my eyes light up, he says. And I say, we better be careful because it's the ultimate threat. Medvedev posted on Telegram that Trump should recall his favorite films about The Walking Dead while referencing Soviet Union nuclear strikes doctrine. So Trump explained in an interview, he shouldn't have said it. He's got a fresh mouth. He's said things in the past too. And so we always want to be ready. And so I have sent to the region 2 nuclear submarines. I just want to make sure that his words are only words and nothing more than that. And yes, the submarines, they're closer to Russia. And Trump went ahead and dispatched them. And now this reminds me of something very interesting because now we're talking about nuclear weapons. We're talking about Russia. And this brings us back to the sum of all fears once again, which is very, very interesting. But Trump, this is what he put out on Truth. Based on highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I've ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions. Just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that, words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So who do you think would want a nuclear weapon? Do you really think Russia would like this? Or do you think the deep state players would love a nuclear war? Remember, think about what's coming out right now. You don't think the deep state players are in line with certain individuals within Russia? Of course they are. Let's talk about our health. A recent clinical trial found that participants using just 10 grams of collagen a day for 8 weeks saw up to 20% increase in skin hydration and a 17% improvement in elasticity while visibly reducing their wrinkle depth. If you're aiming to boost skin health, collagen is a must-have. But typical collagen supplements found on store shelves don't always do the job. This is why I use this special blend of magic, and I'm obsessed with how much my skin health has improved. It improves my skin with the 5 types of premium collagen it needs to help reduce wrinkles. Since taking it, I've seen smoother skin, more elasticity, fewer lines, and more youthful glow. Plus, it mixes smoothly with my morning coffee or tea. Make sure to grab a bag while it's still 51% off, only at healthwithx22.com. Plus, you'll also get free VIP live and health fitness coaching for life, a free ebook titled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free shipping with your order. Once again, that website is healthwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. You don't think they sold uranium-1 to Russia? Certain individuals within Russia, part of the deep state? Of course they did. Who would want a war to cover up everything that they've done? Of course, the deep state players. Trump knows this. He knows what they'll try to do. And this is why he's trying to have peace around the world before the deep state players try to push. And if you've actually noticed, the deep state players, I do believe they're trying to start war in all these different countries. And Trump, he keeps putting out the fires. And he's saying, well, no war here. Sorry, you tried, but it's not going to work. Trump, he put this out and said, I've just been informed that almost 20,000 Russian soldiers died this month in the ridiculous war with Ukraine. Russia has lost 112,500 soldiers since the beginning of the year. This is a lot of unnecessary death. Ukraine, however, has also suffered greatly. They have also lost approximately 8,000 soldiers since January 1st of 2025, and that number does not include their missing. Ukraine has also lost civilians, but in smaller numbers, as Russian rockets crash into Kiev and other Ukrainian locales. This is a war that should have never happened. This is Biden's war, not Trump's. I'm just here to see if I can stop it, which means I do believe they probably already are very close to a peace deal. We know that Zelensky now, he's not receiving funding. He's not receiving the weapons he was before. I do believe this is a war of attrition. Trump has given Russia, instead of 50 days, something like 10 to 12 days. And I do believe he was waiting to see how long it would take the EU, NATO, and the rest of the deep state players to say, listen, we just have no money to send you. Without the money, how are you going to fight the war? And you can see Zelensky, he wants an overthrow of the Russian government, but I don't believe that's going to happen. He's now struggling right now, but I do believe if Trump is putting this out, he must be very, very close to some type of peace deal. And I do believe we're going to see peace probably, not going to say next week, but in the next couple of weeks, in a month or so. I do believe as everything that he's doing, it's going to wear the EU down, the deep state players down, NATO down, and soon they're going to say, we don't have money to fight this war. So all we have left is peace. What are we going to do? And, Zelensky's talking to the EU, talking to the deep state players. What's next? The only thing they have, is a false flag, nuclear war. They could try to start that. I don't think it's going to work. And soon we're going to see peace around the world. Now, the other thing that we could see is that RFK Jr. now, he is reversing everything the deep state, the pharmaceutical companies have put into place. Remember, the things that they put into place was not to really benefit us. And you can see he's already made the announcement that he's going to be banning mercury-based thimerosal from all flu vaccines. I don't even think we need a flu vaccine. I think we have better remedies, but he's removing it because what they've come to learn is that this mercury-based thimerosal, it actually caused mild to severe mental retardation in unborn children, which is very, very interesting. You don't think they knew this all this time? Of course they did. I do believe that the flu vaccine, the COVID vaccine, a lot of these vaccines, we never, ever really needed. I think there's other cures. But again, one step at a time. If you just try to wipe all this out, most of America, you might be like, I'm done. I'm not taking a vaccine. I get it. I'm going to be taking ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, vitamin D, Z. But you have to remember the rest of the country, they're not on board yet. So you have to slowly wean them off of these things, which I do believe that's exactly what's going to happen. And what's very interesting is that the newly appointed FDA commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary, he pulled no punches as he directly accused the National Institute of Health of funding the lab responsible for creating the virus that sparked the COVID-19 pandemic. So he's letting everyone know, hey, by the way, it came from the NIH. And it wasn't just a lab leak in China. Actually, they're finally admitted that it's a lab leak. Before they said it came from the wet market. But now that everyone knows it came from a lab, remember, they have many, many different safety protocols in place. No one is going to believe that it just happened to leak out the same exact moment when the elections were coming up. And it was the perfect time that it leaked out where they were able to use mail-in ballots, cheat in the election, overthrow the United States government. Does anyone really believe that this was just all one gigantic coincidence? No, they planned it from the very beginning, just like everything else. Then they lied to the American people. COVID was part of their overthrow. That is what people are going to learn. And this is why, slowly but surely, people are learning that this didn't come from the wet market. The lab leak is kind of true. It did come from a lab. People are going to learn that, no, it just didn't leak. They used it to cheat in the election. And of course, they were trying to plan the Great Reset, the Green New scam, because they made the announcement. Who made the announcement? Well, it just so happens in March of 2020, we had Klaus Schwab and at the time, Prince Charles. They made the announcement that this was the perfect time for the Great Reset. So do you think it was planned? Of course it was. They planned everything out perfectly. They just didn't come up with it overnight. They planned this out a long time ago. They already had the ballots pre-printed. Everything was ready to go. You just can't do these things on the fly. The insurrection was planned out over a year ago of what happened in January 6th. They had the confidential human sources all they were going to do. And now it's all going to fall apart on them. Because again, all of this stuff is connected. And what's very interesting is that Trump on Friday, he sent out, and this is coming from Rapid Response 47, he sent out 17 drug manufacturers letters outlining steps they must take to bring down prescription drug prices. If they refuse to step up, the administration will use every tool to protect Americans from continued abusive drug pricing practices. And it went to all the drug manufacturers. You know what's very interesting? When you think about it and you go back to like a Biden, which is really Obama, and then Obama again, talk about other governors like Newsom and Hochul and many others. They always talk about price gouging. If you notice, have they ever talked about price gouging with the pharmaceutical companies? I mean, when they had this crazy inflation, oil companies are price gouging. Oh, food stores, supermarkets, they're price gouging. How come they never, ever, ever mention price gouging with the pharmaceutical companies? Think about that for a second. That should tell you everything you need to know. And it looks like all the colleges now, they're bending a knee to Trump. They're pushing back on the woke policies. And it's because of Trump's executive orders. Lives of TikTok put this out and said, Wagner College has agreed to issue apologies to all of its female athletes who competed against male Redmond Sullivan after pressure from the Trump admin. The agreement cites the incident where female fencer Stephanie Turner kneeled to protest Sullivan and refused to play. Turner was given a black card, the harshest penalty in the sport, disqualified from the event, and dealt a 12-month probation. The school will also adopt new biological definitions for male and female in its sports programs. Now, yes, this is very good that we see these things being done. But again, it's because Trump is in the presidency. He created an executive order. They're abiding by the executive order. But you have to remember, these institutions would just completely reverse everything that they are doing right now if, let's say, Obama or Kamala Harris or someone else filled the presidency's shoes. They would reverse everything that Trump is doing. The only reason they're abiding by right now is because there'd be penalties and the Trump administration would come down on them. So in the end, we need full accountability. We need full retribution. We need to show all of these people, you try this again, well, it's not going to work. And the only way to do this is to have the people, the majority of the people on your side. Now, what's very interesting is I know a lot of people believe that the argument between Elon and Trump, it was real and they're angry at each other. But you could see that they needed to separate themselves. Number one, you could see the direction that Trump was bringing the country down. And if Elon was by his side, they'd be destroying his dealerships, his manufacturing plants, you name it. They'd be attacking him over and over and over. And I think Trump and the Patriots, and I think Elon, they knew this. Plus, Elon had to separate because, again, he started Doge and he needed to go back to his businesses, run his businesses without interference. And what's very interesting is that Elon Musk, he donated a staggering $15 million to Trump's MAGA PAC and congressional Republicans in June. It's kind of strange for two individuals that are having a huge fight, isn't it? Very interesting. Now, Trump, he really needs his nominees confirmed. And you can see the D's, they are putting a lot of pressure on the rhinos in the Senate. And we could see that Schumer, he is now pushing a lot of this. And again, yes, we might have the majority in the House and the Senate, but we do not have full control. And I do believe once we win in the midterms, I do believe at that point in time, we will have control of the House, we will have control of the Senate, and yeah, of course, we'll have the majority. But at this point in time, you could see the deep state players with the rhinos, they're fighting against Trump with everything that they have. Trump, he put this out and said, this is what the Democrats are doing to our nation. They're refusing to approve some of the best nominees in the history of our country. If we had George Washington and Abraham Lincoln lined up, they would do everything in their power to delay and disapprove. This should never be allowed to happen, and it has never happened before. And he shows a chart Percentage of civilian nominees confirmed by voice vote or unanimous consent in first term. Bush, H.W. Bush, 98%. Clinton, 98%. W. Bush, 90%. Obama, 90%. Trump, 1, 65%. Biden, 57%. Trump, 2, 0%. That should tell you everything you need to know. And Schumer, he tried to blackmail the Senate and Trump. He wanted $1 billion to basically confirm the nominees. I mean, think about what's going on right now. Trump responded to this and said, Senator crying Chuck Schumer is demanding over $1 billion in order to approve a small number of our highly qualified nominees who should right now be helping to run our country. This demand is egregious and unprecedented and would be embarrassing to the Republican Party if they were accepted. It is political extortion by any other name. Tell Schumer, who is under tremendous political pressure from within his own party, the radical left lunatics, to go to hell. Do not accept the offer. Go home and explain to your constituents what bad people the Democrats are and what a great job the Republicans are doing and have done for our country. Have a great recess and make America great again. So basically, we could see what's happening right now. Schumer is trying to blackmail Trump and the rhinos. Give us $1 billion. Now, what's very interesting, I do believe Trump might have set all of this up. I'm not saying about the Schumer part, but might have set up the circumstance where Trump can actually move forward with his recess appointments, because he knows certain rhinos and D's, they're not going to go through all his nominees and confirm all his people. And I think he realized that I need a different way of approaching this, and I need to get all these people in place because, again, we're taking back the country. But he did let everyone know that the Democrats are extortionists. This is what he put out on Truth. He said the following: the Democrats are extortionists who almost destroyed our country. Now we are back, and the USA is the hottest country anywhere in the world. Make America great again. And what is John Thune doing? Well, he just announced, and Rick Sorter put this out, he'll be blocking Trump from making appointments after he recesses the Senate tonight via pro forma sessions. So basically what that means is every 3 days or so, they're going to have certain individuals come in and gavel in the Senate. They're going to put them into session. There'll be nobody there. And this way, they're never in recess. So what can Trump do? Well, he can do many different things, but it looks like Markwayne Mullin is already letting us know that the Republicans, they're going to be regrouping and they're going to prepare to change the Senate rules. So this is going to be very, very interesting. And let's see what he comes up with. But the president can invoke the adjournment power granted under Article 2, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution to resolve a disagreement between the House and Senate on the timing of adjournment, effectively forcing both chambers into recess of sufficient length, at least 10 days per the Supreme Court's ruling in NLRB versus Noel Canning, to enable recess appointments. This power has never been used in U.S. history, but was explicitly noted as a potential mechanism by the Supreme Court in Noel Canning, both in the majority and concerning opinions, to allow the president with sufficient allies in Congress to bypass pro forma sessions designed to block recesses. In the scenario where the Senate is holding pro forma sessions while the House seeks a full recess, the process could unfold as follows to trigger this power. Under Article 1, Section 5, Clause 4 of the Constitution, neither chamber can adjourn for more than 3 days without the other's consent, typically achieved via a concurrent resolution passed by simple majority in both. The House, assuming it is aligned with the president and willing to facilitate recess appointments, would pass a concurrent resolution to adjourn for at least 10 to 11 days. If the Senate refuses to concur, consistent with its pro forma strategy to stay technically in session and block recess appointments, this creates a formal disagreement on the time of adjournment. The president could then step in to adjourn both chambers for a period he deems appropriate, example, 10 plus days, creating an enforced recess during which the recess appointments clause Article 2, Section 2, Clause 3 allows a temporary appointments without Senate confirmation. These appointments would expire at the end of the next Senate session. This approach is controversial and untested, potentially inviting maybe legal challenges, which probably is going to happen. But this is an approach that Trump can make. So let's see how this all plays out. Let's see what the Republicans come up with, where they said they're going to make rule changes. And let's see if Trump uses this option. He does have different options, and let's see which one he goes with. This is going to be very, very interesting. But I do believe that to bypass everything that these are trying to do, I do believe this is one way to do it. And we could see that with all this Russian collusion evidence coming out, the D's are having a very, very difficult time right now, because this points to their impeachments. This points to Hillary Clinton, Obama, Brennan Clapper, and the rest, and Biden, and it shows that they set President Trump up, and they went ahead with a coup d'etat. And this is just the beginning of the coup. Remember, this is an introduction to what they were trying to do. And look who was the first individual that linked Trump to Putin. It was then Vice President Biden. He went around the same time Hillary Clinton had signed off on the Clinton Plan intelligence that laid out the strategy. Biden was the first major Democrat in summer of 2016 to publicly try to link Trump to Putin after U.S. intelligence intercepted a purported plan by Hillary Clinton's campaign to vilify Trump by falsely linking him to a Russian plot. The timing of Biden's Russia attack against Trump in July 2016 was striking to U.S. intelligence because it and other events matched predictions in the intercepted evidence from Russian spy agencies, which had claimed to have gained access to the Clinton campaign strategy. Biden would become the public face of an effort to attack Trump by linking him to Putin, starting in July of 2016. Just as the Democratic National Convention formally nominated, Clinton was getting underway. Isn't that interesting how they were planning this all out perfectly? Like we said with everything else, it's always planned from the very, very beginning. And you can see the New York Times, they tried to spin the entire Russian collusion hoax as best they possibly could. And this is what they put out. Clinton plan emails were likely made by Russian spies, new documents show. I mean, really think about this for a second. This is how they're trying to spin it. Sean Davis responds to this and says, that's not what it shows at all. The New York Times is straight up lying. Anyone surprised about this? Didn't they get a Pulitzer for this? It looks like that one's going to be taken back. This is what Sean Davis says. The Durham Annex never states at all that the specific intelligence was fabricated. It says the opposite, that this office was never able to determine definitely whether the purported Clinton campaign plan intelligence was entirely genuine, partially true, a composite pulled from multiple sources, exaggerated in certain respects, or fabricated in its entirety. At the time the intel, which Ben Smith says was fake, was received, John Brennan took it so seriously that he briefed Obama about it, took notes about it, and stashed the notes away in his safe. James Comey specifically went under oath and cited the Clinton plan intelligence as one of the major reasons he chose to unilaterally usurp the authority of Loretta Lynch and to declare that the U.S. government could not charge Hillary Clinton for her use of an illegal private email server. Comey told Congress that he believed the Clinton plan intelligence was genuine. So far as I knew at the time, and still think, Comey testified on December 7, 2018. The material itself was genuine. FBI General Counsel James Baker said that he was greatly concerned about the intel and specifically Lynch's reaction when confronted with it. Durham's report said Baker did not dismiss the credibility of the intel reports. Andrew McCabe likewise said he was struck by Lynch's odd reaction to the allegations. Everyone on earth knows the Clinton campaign launched a scheme to falsely claim that Trump colluded with Russia. This new claim that somehow it was fabrication that the Clinton campaign ran an op to falsely tie Trump to Russia is beyond insane. It's sociopathic. And that's absolutely true. Molly says the following. So is the New York Times Russia collusion hoaxer claiming that Russia faked a plan that just happened to be identical to Clinton's actual plan that she ended up running with the New York Times help? Kind of funny. Dan Bongino responded to all of this and said, "It's sad that we have to constantly go through this exercise with media figures obsessed with false narratives." Sean is correct. As he lays out the fact pattern about the attempted takedown of President Trump, I strongly caution you against accepting media-driven narratives about the collusion hoax, given their roles in promoting the hoax in the first place and the discovery of new information since the director and I took over. Now, think about what the fake news is doing. They're putting out fake information, and what is that called? Operation Mockingbird. So has that ever ended? No. Tulsi Gabbard reminds us that no, Operation Mockingbird never ended and that it's still in full swing. So the fake news is still pushing propaganda. And that reminds me of Post 626, January 27, 2018. Chatter exploding. Change of narrative will be required. If you notice, they're having a very difficult time spinning this. I mean, the New York Times article isn't really not working, saying that Clinton's plan was exactly like the Russian plan. I mean, think about that for a second. Public to awaken, mass start, sleeping pill rejected. Operation Mockingbird, failure. Fake to real, blind to 2020 vision, kill chain. Where we go one, we go all. So basically, people are now going to realize that everything the fake news is saying is just that, fake news. Now you know why Trump, going all the way back to 2016, called them the fake news. It was done on purpose for this moment right now. Trump, he put this out on Truth, and he's referring to Jonathan Turley from X, and it says, of course the media, including the Post and the Times, which won Pulitzer Prizes for the story, never said it was a trick. They said it was the truth. That is why they cannot honestly report on the story now. To do so would not be coverage. It would be a confession. Can you imagine them all coming out saying, listen, it's all fake. Everything we told you is not real. Trump and team, they knew that the fake news would never do that. He knew that they would continue on with the grand conspiracy, and they have. Throughout the elections, Biden, Hillary Clinton, Obama, the fake news, they've continued with the grand conspiracy, which means the statute of limitations, it doesn't run out. And you could see that Brennan, he was one of the individuals who was the mastermind, and he protected everything to make sure that no one would know exactly what was going on. Hans put this out and said, one of the most striking revelations in the newly released Durham Appendix is that the steady stream of intelligence flowing from Russian sources throughout 2016 abruptly ended in late July. This intelligence covered everything from Hillary Clinton's efforts to cover up her email scandal to her campaign's plan to smear Trump with false Russian collusion allegations. The documents spanned from January through late July 2016. The moment when U.S. intelligence discovered the Russian operatives were aware of Clinton's plan to vilify Trump. Here is where the story takes a darker turn. That crucial late July intelligence was briefed to President Obama by then CIA Director John Brennan on August 3rd. Remember, Biden was the first one that leaked this out on the 16th in 2016 of July. The very next day, Brennan placed a direct call to his Russian counterpart, Federal Security Service Director Alexander Bortnikov. Officially, Brennan warned Russia to cease election interference. Yet, at that time, no confirmed interference had occurred. In fact, even months later, both the FBI and NSA expressed strong skepticism about the central claim that Russia had hacked and leaked Democratic National Committee emails. So what did Brennan really communicate to Bortnikov? The sudden stop of the intelligence stream right after the Clinton plan was exposed strongly suggests Brennan signaled to the Russians, either directly or indirectly, that U.S. intelligence had uncovered their knowledge of Clinton's scheme. The result was the immediate drying up of that valuable intelligence channel. In other words, Brennan's phone call appears to have sabotaged a critical intelligence pipeline to protect Hillary Clinton from further scrutiny. prioritizing dirty politics over national security. Jeff Carlson responded to this and said, that call always stood out. Brennan said he raised the subject of published reports about Russian interference in the election. What published reports? Brennan's own words, I told Mr. Bortnikov that if Russia had such a campaign underway, it was certain to backfire. That quote can be read in several differing ways. Very interesting. So Brennan seems like he was protecting himself and actually securing everything that was happening in the ICA. Now, Nunes, he was on with Maria Bartiromo, and he said something very interesting, and Johnny Midnight put this out. Devin Nunes says, Barack Obama raided Mar-a-Lago because he wanted his manufactured ICA back. In other words, the Obama administration attempted to overthrow the U.S. government in 2016 and overthrew it in 2020 to cover it up. So he wanted all that information back because look what they've done, and they thought Trump had it. Paul Sperry put this out and said, CIA Chief Brennan had such tight control over his super secret fusion cell task force, he shut all but 3 of the 18 IC agencies out and forced its 15 members to convene in a skiff inside CIA headquarters and show special clearance tickets to see docs, and then made them all sign NDAs. Why would he do that? To cover his tracks. Paul Sperry once again said, a nagging question even among Dems has been, why didn't Obama act further sooner to respond to alleged Russian activities versus Clinton on behalf of Trump during the 2016 election? Well, now we know the answer. There was no intel of that during the election. It was made up afterward. So basically, you could see that these individuals, they covered up everything that they were creating. And again, the cover-up always gets you in the end. FBI Director Kash Patel responded to all this and said, in 2017-2018, I proved the Steele dossier was fictitious intelligence, weaponized by corrupt FBI officials to deceive a federal judge and unlawfully spy on then presidential candidate President Trump's campaign, all paid by his opponent. The media called me a liar. Now I'm the FBI director. We just uncovered burn bags, room filled with hidden Russiagate files, including the Durham Annex, and declassified them. Once again, I released the prior FBI's own documents and exposed the truth. The same media is calling me a liar again. Maybe this FBI will release more docs directly from FBI headquarters so we can see who is lying. Wouldn't want to deprive the fake news of more bogus Pulitzers. And then, so I think Kash is going to release more information. Think about how they're playing this. You release a little bit of information. You have the deep state players try to cover this up. They write an article that Clinton's plan is like Russia's plan. And basically, you continually do this and you trap them in the cover-up. That is exactly what they're doing right now. And yes, during this period of time, they were spying on Scavino. They were spying on Kash. They were spying on everyone. Scavino put this out and said, they, Dems, thought Trump and those close to him would be in prison by now. That was their end game after a long 9-year journey. But he's back, and the cover-up is unraveling before our very eyes. Buckle up and sleep tight, y'all. You know who you are. TikTok. Think about what's happening right now. Everything that they did, all the cover-up, all the documents, everything that they tried to do is now falling apart on them. Because everything they did, every step of the way, was a cover-up of their crime, where they projected everything that they were doing onto Trump. And now it's coming back to haunt them, just like it's coming back to haunt Jack Smith. He is now under investigation by the Office of Special Counsel. And you could see that he's going to be investigated. And once again, like everything else, COVID, illegals, job numbers, tariffs, the fake news and the Ds, they push disinformation. And they are actually the conspiracy theorists. They created conspiracies and they lied to the American people. And what's going to happen as we move forward, we're going to see that justice is going to be served. And Trump now is putting all the people into place. This is why he needs a lot of his nominees confirmed. Because again, these nominees are very, very important. Most of them are going to help actually bring accountability. So right now we see Rapid Response 47, Jason Reddings Quinones, he was confirmed as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. And I do believe when the DOJ charges these conspirators in the Southern District of Florida, he'll be the one handling it. In D.C., we're going to see Judge Jeanine Pirro. She's going to be handling what happens in D.C. Nick Sorter put this out and said, Judge Jeanine Pirro has just been confirmed as the U.S. Attorney for D.C., 50-45. So basically, she's in place. We have the attorney in Florida in place. Remember, all these people are being put into place to bring accountability. And you can see Adam Schiff, he's panicking about this. This is what he put out. A sad moment for the Senate and the country. Republicans just confirmed Jeanine Pirro as U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. Yes, the same judge, Jeanine, that even Fox News said was crazy and had to take her off the air. How can they vote to confirm these people? Translation, holy crap, they have a real attorney that's going to come after me. She's really good, and she's going to bring up everything that I did. Not just him, but many other people. Think about what's going to happen when Trump actually brings in a judge that's going to follow the rule of law in D.C. and other judges that are going to follow the rule of law. Remember, we can't have trials unless we have people in place that are actually going to fight and use the rule of law to show the people how these people are guilty. And we need the judges on the back end that are going to follow the rule of law. Without that, there'll be no accountability whatsoever. So all those people saying we have to do it now, no. We need to wait until all the pieces are in place. Trump now is just feeding the narrative. And you know what the deep state is feeling every single day? Pain. Every single day. Real America's Voice put this out and said, Trump wants Hillary Clinton investigated for election fraud. Reporter, will Hillary Clinton finally be investigated for election fraud? Trump says, I hope so. He's already feeding the narrative. Unbelievable. And like we said before, we know that Scavino, Kash Patel, and many others, they were spied on. Because, again, the deep state players, they needed to know what they knew, so they needed to look into everything that they were doing. And Scavino, he put this out and said, imagine patriotically and proudly serving for the first Trump White House for 4 years and departing in January of 2021. Then during the 4 years you're out, Biden lawfare kicks in and you receive the below email 5 weeks before re-entering the White House again in January 2025. Google received and responded to a legal process issued by the Federal Bureau of Investigation compelling the release of information related to your Google account. A court order previously prohibited Google from notifying you of the legal process. I've never shared this, but this is a small taste of the insanity that many of us went through. Right here in the United States of America, lawfare at its finest, a complete and total disgrace. Ezra Cohen responded to this, says, why didn't Google fight these unlawful subpoenas that targeted many Trump officials? They enthusiastically complied. Should they face consequences? Absolutely. Why did they comply? They're part of the criminal syndicate. And think about it. They were spying on Scavino and Kash. He also let everyone know that this happened to him. They were spying on them because they wanted to know what was going on, what were they were talking about. Do they have the documents? Do they have the cover-up information? And again, actually, if we bring up Google, you know who communicates via Google? Oh, that's right. Biden, Obama, Hillary Clinton. Why do you think they were looking at Google? Because that's how they do it. They project it on everyone else. Dan Scavino, he put out a video, and it's Phil Collins singing I Feel It Coming in the Air Tonight, which means something is coming. DC Lidstone looked at this and said, August 2nd Delta, post 1802, something big is about to drop. Then Scavino put this out. Justice must be served. And yes, justice must be served, because if it isn't, then we don't have a republic. We don't have the rule of law. We don't have freedom. And like we said from the very, very beginning, Awaken Outlaw put this out, and it says, there's a quote by John Locke: "Where there is no law, there is no freedom." Awaken Outlaw says, it can't not be. Knowing what we know, you can't not prosecute those involved, or there is no law. Our republic cannot survive without it. And that's absolutely true. Colonel Towner Watkins responded to him and said, "We've already been here, but everyone forgets. The CIA assassinated JFK in 1974 after the CIA coup Nixon with a team of Cuban exiles in congressional hearings. We found out literally everything we're currently finding out. The CIA overthrew our government twice. Operation Mockingbird, they were involved in Operation Gladio-style coups all over the world, and not a damn thing happened. Unless you want to count President Carter's firing the whole damn lot of the covert operations in the Halloween massacre. You know that horrible, worst ever president just also happens to be the only guy that did anything about the CIA? But not to worry, Bush Sr. and his favorite weapons trafficker sets up the Safari Club in Kenya to continue operations until they can get Carter out of office with a revolution in Iran. You know, revolution, as in the new guy, keeps all the same bad guys with a new name and gets lots of illicit arms shipments from the CIA. But pay no attention to that. Oh, also, don't forget the CIA guy that got sacrificed in Greece so the CIA could blame Congress for his death because they were asking too many questions. Then it all went away. Well, except for Congressional Leo Ryan. He still wanted answers. They killed him. Then it all went away. So over a long period of time, and I do believe this is why Trump has been releasing the JFK, RFK, MLK files, is because starting at that point, we've had the government overthrown many, many, many times. But can Trump go all the way back and tell the story? Well, with the documents he can, but I do believe this is just the precursor to what Obama did and the CIA did starting at 2008, because that is much easier to understand, and it's actually more in line with what people know today, because basically people have been alive during that period of time. A lot of people really can't go back to the 60s because, you know, they forgot what happened, or a lot of the people from that period of time are dead, or people who are very, very young. So it does tell a story, but I believe in 2008, that is the true story of what people are going to resonate with. And once again, Dan Scavino, he put out that video of the lion where all the jackals are nipping and going after the lion. And eventually what happens is the lion shows all these jackals, you know, Adam Schiff, Pelosi, Obama, Brendan Clapper. Those are all the jackals. Shows them who really is the king of the jungle. And the lion goes after every single one of them and destroys and rips through all of them. That is what's happening right now. And since this is 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, let's go back to post 220. And this is what this post says. November 23rd, 2017. Reminder, unclassified setting, monitor and analyze in real time, future answers past. So that is what's happening right now. Trump, he put this out and said, the Russia hoax is now totally undisputed. The facts are all there in black and white. It is the biggest scandal in American history. The perpetrators of this crime must pay a big price. This could never be allowed to happen in our country again. And he's absolutely right. And this reminds me of post 3831. It says, they never thought she was going to lose. Panic in D.C. Down below it says, people actually believe those responsible for the attempted coup attempt of a duly elected sitting U.S. president will go unpunished? End to our constitutional republic? No equal justice under the law? No accountability? Escape unscathed? Buckle up. There has to be justice. And I do believe Trump is going to bring justice, not by himself, because the people want it. And that is more powerful than anything else. And Trump is going to do what he did with the illegals. This is what the people want. I have a mandate. The people want me to bring you to justice. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to do what the people want because they saw the treasonous acts. They saw the overthrow of the government. They saw you release the virus on the people to overthrow the government. They saw the insurrection that you created and that's continuing. They see the treason. They see the crimes. They see it all. We're going to have accountability. And I do believe it's going to happen. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that with all that going on, the Supreme Court is going to rule on a race-based congressional district. This would give Republicans a massive advantage in 2026 midterms. So the U.S. Supreme Court signaled that it is likely to rehear Louisiana versus Callius, a case that challenges the idea of race-based congressional districts. If they rule against this, other states are going to follow. This would give Republicans a huge advantage heading into the 2026 midterms. Very interesting, the timing. Democrats could lose as many as 25 seats just through redistricting. The reaction from Democrats would be nuclear. Remember how awful they were during the Kavanaugh hearings? Imagine that times 100. So this is going to be very, very interesting. We'll have to see how this all plays out, and we'll have to see how the Supreme Court rules. The other thing that's really interesting, and if you notice, this is all going to happen before the midterms, Trump Department of Justice has officially launched a sweeping nationwide investigation into bloated and corrupted voter rolls across the United States. The effort comes directly from the March executive order signed by Trump, tasking Attorney General Pam Bondi and the DOJ with coordinating with state attorney generals to investigate and prosecute illegal voter registrations, including felons, dead voters, foreign nationals. This is why Trump needs his nominees in place, those individuals that are going to be attorney generals, that are going to be prosecutors, because they're going to work with Pam Bondi. They're going to uphold the rule of law. They're going to shut down the cheating. So the order directed Bondi to coordinate with state attorney general, elected officials to identify and investigate suspected election crimes, voter fraud, or illegal registrations. So this time, Trump is not waiting to after the midterms. He's now shutting it down beforehand, using executive orders, the rule of law, and this is why he needs his people in place, which I do believe he's going to get his people in place, because again, this is all about the midterms. Everything that we're witnessing, everything that we're seeing, Trump, because of the plan that he is using right now, he needs the people confirmed, and he needs control of the House and the Senate. Once that happens, he has full control to bring accountability. And I do believe the Patriots will get full control. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot. Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3700A, and today's date is August 3rd, 2025, and the title of the episode is First Fed Gov Resigns. Trump is dividing the Federal Reserve. Preparation for the new system. You know what's interesting? I think everyone needs to hear this. If you're getting close to retirement or just thinking ahead, you've probably done a solid job of saving. But here's something most people don't consider. How much of that money is just sitting in cash? It might feel safe, but holding too much cash guarantees one thing. You're losing purchasing power. Inflation eats away at it, and the dollar's value keeps slipping. That's why more people are looking at real assets like physical gold and silver to protect their savings. And one of the companies making it easy? Noble Gold Investments. You can buy gold or silver, coins or bars, and have them shipped to your home or stored securely. It's a smart way to convert cash into something that actually holds value. Noble Gold is fair, transparent, and they don't pressure you. Just solid information and real options. Visit x22gold.com. That is x22gold.com. Go today to x22gold.com. When you own real assets, you have real wealth. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you can see that everything that they have done to this economic system via the central bank, it is now completely and utterly falling apart on them. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it seem like Trump, what he's doing is actually making the economy worse. And you have to remember, the deep state players, the central bankers, they have people in place. And remember, they've been manipulating statistical numbers for a very, very long time. Think about the elections when they try to convince you that, oh, this, like Kamala is in the lead, and that was never happening. I mean, remember when she was running for president the first time, she got like 1% in the Democratic Party. Secondly, we've always known that the inflation numbers, the job numbers, they've been manipulated for a very long time because they have to manipulate the numbers because, number one, as the central bank system breaks down, they need to explain to the people how it's not breaking down. So what they have to do is they have to manipulate GDP, they have to manipulate inflation, and they have to manipulate the job numbers. And we need to remember one thing that's very, very important. As the central bank system breaks down and jobs are lost to other countries overseas, what do they do to make up the difference? They expand government. Now, this helps them in many different ways because when they expand the government, it adds to their criminal syndicate system. It bloats the system. And now the job numbers look good because as they lose the private jobs, they say, well, here are the government jobs to replace them. And think about it. During Biden's time in office, they completely and utterly lied to the American people. They manipulated the numbers, and they really had to go way above what they normally do. And Biden kept saying he created like millions of jobs. But in reality, he lost almost 1 million jobs. But they had to manipulate the numbers. They had to revise the numbers to convince the people. And think about it. They kept that person in that position when Trump came into office. And this person is still manipulating the numbers. What we need to do now, and I think Trump is already about to do this, is take away all these people that have been manipulating the numbers for a very long time. And we need to go back to the actual calculations all the way back to 1970 or prior to 1970, because again, once we came off the gold standard and we went full fiat, this is when they had to start manipulating the numbers. And they left certain things out of the calculation of inflation. They left certain things out of the calculation of GDP. They had to manipulate how you got the job numbers. And I think this is now all falling apart on them. And it's very interesting because the fake news is trying to say that Trump wants to be a dictator or a king and he doesn't like the numbers. Well, actually, no. Basically, what happened was the numbers were manipulated under the dictator called Biden, or we like to say Obama because that's who was really running the country. They manipulated the numbers to make it look good. They lied to the American people. Remember, they've lied about everything. You think the economy, they didn't lie about that? Of course they did. This is a central bank illusionary economy. Of course they have to lie. Do you really believe that the economy was roaring under Biden when inflation hit 9% and fuel was way above $3 and someplace was $4, $5, $6, $7? I mean, now if you go out, most of the states now are under $3. Some states are in the mid twos or lower twos. So Trump is doing everything to reverse everything that they've done and actually pull us out of the recession that they caused. I do believe we were in a recession under the Biden administration. And you could see with this whole new Green New Scam agenda, that is completely and utterly falling apart. I mean, just take a look at California, for example. Remember, they have a mandate and they want everyone to buy electric vehicles. And what's happening right now, and recent data is now showing that EV registrations in the second quarter of 2025 barely edged up from the previous quarter while dropping significantly compared to the same period last year, raising questions about the viability of mandates that override consumer choice. The California Energy Commission reported that 100,671 zero-emission vehicles were registered from April to June, accounting for 21.6% of new vehicles sales. This figure represents a modest increase from the first quarter's 100,326, but a notable decline from the 116,813 seen in the second quarter of 2024. Overall, the state's ZEV market share has trended downward, slipping from 25.1% in the fourth quarter of 2024 to 23% in the first quarter of 2025 before hitting its current low. And remember, when you try to force something on the people when they really aren't demanding it, eventually what happens is people say, I just don't want this. I mean, you're forcing me. It's like the Affordable Care Act. I mean, look at the dictators. They're telling, oh, Trump is a dictator, no kings. Actually, we fought no kings on Independence Day. But when a dictator says you must take this, that's the dictator. Trump is saying, listen, I want people to have choice. You can have an electric vehicle. That's fine with me. If you want a gas powered car, that's fine. If you want to take mass transportation, that's okay too. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make everything affordable so people can afford it. Now, maybe the electric cars will be a little bit more expensive because we're going to remove the tax credit from all this. Because once again, people should have to pay and the government should have to subsidize, and the government shouldn't force people to do something they don't really want to do. It's almost like the Affordable Care Act. You must take this very, very expensive insurance or else we will then penalize you with more taxes. That's a dictator. That's what a dictator really is. And I think people now are starting to really understand this. Just like they're starting to understand that Trump now is actually turning the entire government and now shifting us away from the private Western Central Bank illusionary economic system. And remember, to keep the lie up, and yes, the D's, the central bank, the fake news, they've been telling the economic big lie for a very long time. Remember, as they moved the private jobs out of this country, they had to replace them with something. Because if they didn't, you know what it would look like? It would look like there's no jobs in America. So what did they do? They basically created more and more and more federal jobs. And most of these people did absolutely nothing. And Trump now is reversing this. And yes, are the unemployment numbers, are the numbers going to look a little different? Because remember, he's now reversing everything that they did. So he's shrinking the government, which means those jobs are disappearing. And he's creating the private sector jobs. And the private sector jobs, it takes a little while for the jobs to come on board. Because remember, if we're building manufacturing plants, you know what's interesting? I think everyone needs to hear this. If you're getting close to retirement or just thinking ahead, you've probably done a solid job of saving. But here's something most people don't consider. How much of that money is just sitting in cash? It might feel safe, but holding too much cash guarantees one thing. You're losing purchasing power. Inflation eats away at it, and the dollar's value keeps slipping. That's why more people are looking at real assets like physical gold and silver to protect their savings. And what are the companies making it easy? Noble Gold Investments. You can buy gold or silver, coins or bars, and have them shipped to your home or stored securely. It's a smart way to convert cash into something that actually holds value. Noble Gold is fair, transparent, and they don't pressure you. Just solid information and real options. Visit x22gold.com. That is x22gold.com. Go today to x22gold.com. When you own real assets, you have real wealth. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. They have to be built. And once they are built, those jobs will be filled. But again, we're going to see a lot more construction jobs because if we're building these plants, there's going to be a lot more construction jobs. But we already see now that there is a bloodbath in the federal worker sector. And we can see that the private sector is going to start to build up. Remember, we're in this transition period. The central bank, they've created their system. It does not benefit the people. I think people understand this now. Trump now is shifting everything. And yes, during this period of time, it's not perfect. It's not perfectly smooth. Actually, this is pretty smooth. But yes, you're going to see things because now we're shifting away from what the central bank has done. George put this out and said, there's a bloodbath in the charts for federal workers. This is the only labor market I don't mind seeing getting wrecked. And when you look at it, you could see that the federal workers, they're being laid off, which means a lot of these jobs are going to be turning to the private sector now. And this is what makes the country grow. Having federal workers, it doesn't do anything for the country. Actually, it's a drag on the country because, again, how are these people getting paid? Oh, that's right. All of us. And we go in more and more debt as they take on more and more federal workers. It's unsustainable in the end. I don't care what anyone says. If you have a household and you keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, I would like anyone to try it. Go out and just keep borrowing money without increasing your income. Just keep doing it. Let me know how long you can last. Because what's going to happen in the end, it's going to completely and utterly fall apart. And that's what's going to happen in the government. Even if they can continually borrow, the debt's going to be so enormous that we will not be able to pay off the interest. And what happens in the end, since they can't pay the interest off, they have to raise taxes. If we went back to the 1970 tax rate, do you think we'd be able to pay the interest off right now? Even at 0%, we wouldn't. So the system doesn't work. This is what Trump is getting rid of right now. And what's very interesting is we could see that to keep the central bank system alive, what did they have to do? They had to bring in a lot of illegals. Because again, if you're making the country a third world country and you're not going to pay people and you're going to bring in slave labor, which we've already seen, where they had children working in the weed, and I'm talking about, yes, the weed fields. They were picking the crops for marijuana and other plants. And again, these were slave laborers. Just like when the manufacturers came out of this country, went to other countries, they would have slave labor in other countries and pay people pennies on the dollar. So basically, the deep state players, the central bankers, they were doing the same thing here. To keep the system alive, they had to bring in cheaper and cheaper and cheaper labor. Why do you think? That's part of their agenda. That's why they were bringing in all these illegals. But now Trump is now shifting all of this and turning it all around. Geiger Capital put this out and said, I thought this was a typo. In the last 4 months, native-born Americans have gained 1.8 million jobs. Meanwhile, 1.5 million foreign-born workers, legal and illegal, lost jobs, a sharp reversal of the last few years. And yes, this is what needs to be done. It has to, because otherwise we'd be trapped in the central bank system. It would crash and they would have to bring us into their new system. And this is why Trump stepped in, and this is why he's reversing and creating the parallel economic system to go up against the central bank system. He's competing with it. That's really what he's doing. And what he needs to do is he needs to remove all those individuals in government that manipulates the statistical numbers in regards to the economy. Because remember, if there's Biden appointees calculating what's really going on in the economy, you really think they're telling the truth? I mean, they lied for Biden. What do you think they're going to do with Trump? They're going to say, oh, the economy's awful. And yes, the job numbers came out. And once again, we're starting to realize, hey, look, they're rigging it the opposite way to make it look like Trump's economic system is not doing what he says it's doing, but it is. Trump, he put this out and said, in my opinion, today's job numbers were rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad, just like when they had 3 great days around the 2024 presidential election. And then those numbers were taken away on November 15th, 2024, right after the election, when the job numbers were massively revised downward, making a correction of over 818,000 jobs, a total scam. Jerome Too Late Powell is no better. But the good news is our country is doing great. And it looks like that individual that has been manipulating the numbers, and it's not just her, there are many, many people within this department that probably have to be removed. But Trump, he's already ready to fire this individual. He said, I was just informed that our country's job numbers are being produced by a Biden appointee, Dr. Erica McIntyre, the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, who faked the job numbers before the election and try to boost Kamala's chances of victory. This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that overstated the job growth in March of 2024 by approximately 818,000, and then again right before the 2024 presidential election in August and September by 112,000. These were records. No one can be that wrong. We need accurate job numbers, and I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee. Immediately, she will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. McIntyre said there were only 73,000 jobs added, a shock. But more importantly, that a major mistake was made by them. 258,000 jobs downward in the prior 2 months. Similar things happen in the first part of the year, always to be negative. The economy is booming under Trump despite a Fed that also plays games. This time with interest rates, where they lowered them twice and substantially just before the presidential election. I assume in the hopes of getting Kamala elected. How did that work out? Jerome Tule Powell should also be put out to pasture. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Absolutely. And I do believe that his time is actually coming. And you can see what Trump is doing right now. He's building the narrative to divide the Federal Reserve. Because you have to remember, the American people are looking at the Federal Reserve. The American people are seeing that the economy is improving. They see billions and billions of dollars coming to this country. They see that manufacturers are now building manufacturing plants. We see there's a lot of investment in this country. And Trump has tariffs around the world, which means people now have to pay. I say countries, manufacturers, companies, they have to pay the bill now as of August 1st. And we're going to see a lot more money come into this country. And think about it. Trump has placed 35% on Canada now, 20% on Taiwan, 15% on New Zealand, 39% on Switzerland, 19% on Cambodia, and 15% on Turkey, 15% on South Korea, Venezuela, and Israel, 20% on Sri Lanka, 40% on Laos, Myanmar, 20% on Vietnam, 19% on Indonesia. Now, a lot of these countries, yes, he will be making deals with them. Some already have deals. But when people say, oh, the tariffs are a complete and utter disaster. No, they're not. Remember, Trump is building up an economic system to compete with the central bank. Eventually, what he's going to do, he's going to remove the central bank system, and we will be on our people's system that is going to benefit the people. Because once we remove the theft of our wealth via the Internal Revenue Service, and we go to the External Revenue Service, we're going to see our buying power return to the people, and your hard-earned money is going to return to you, and you're going to feel it. It's going to be absolutely incredible. But when you look at the tariffs, you can see how much money Trump is bringing in. He needs this money to compete with the central bank. The more money he brings in, the more money he has to do what? To wean us off the income tax. Now, of course, we know the Fed, what are they trying to do? They're trying to stop this. This is why they don't want the rates lower, because if you lower the rates, that means his system that he's creating and the tariff money that's coming in, well, the rates come down. That means we have to pay less for the interest, which means he can wean us off the central bank system that much quicker. And when you see lower rates and people see, experience lower rates and businesses experience lower rates, well, people go, holy crap, I have all this buying power now. I can go buy a car. I can buy a house. Businesses can take out loans. They can expand, hire people. This is something they do not want. And I do believe with all the tariffs and everything that Trump is doing right now, we're going to see billions upon billions, eventually trillions of dollars coming into this country. And that's just tariffs. That's not including the gold card. That's not including the sale of energy. That is not including AI. That is not including any of those things. So we're going to see a lot of money start to come into this country. And you can see already the Fed governors, they are now splitting up. They're dividing. And we already have one Fed gov that decided to resign, Andriana Kugler. So she decided that she was going to resign. And basically, this leaves a vacancy for Trump to fill. That is very interesting. I wonder if Trump is going to go all the way back to his first term when he tapped Judy Shelton. Remember, she's a big gold bug. I wonder if she's going to make an appearance, or does he have someone else in mind? But again, he does have a vacancy right now. And what's very interesting is that Bull Pulte, he said, next up, I've been hearing Jerome Powell is next. So we already have one person that decided to resign. And of course, Jerome Powell, he's hanging on. Again, Trump is not battling Powell. He's battling those individuals above him who actually own the central bank system, that control the central bank. And they're telling him to stay put. And I do believe in the end, we're going to see the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, they're going to split. And it's already started. And I do believe Trump's strategy is to divide the Federal Reserve and actually pin them against each other. And this way, he can actually move in for the kill. But this is what Trump put out. He said, too late, Powell should resign, just like Adriana Kugler, a Biden appointee, resigned. She knew he was doing the wrong thing on interest rates. He should resign also. Then he said, Jerome, too late, Powell, a stubborn moron, must substantially lower interest rates. Now, if he continues to refuse, the board should assume control and do what everyone knows has to be done. And I do believe we're going to see the board, they're going to be divided over what they should do with interest rates, because they all know at this point that interest rates should be lowered. But I do believe Powell is being controlled, and they're telling him to push against all others. And I do believe Trump's strategy is to divide the Fed board and have them go against each other. So this way he can maneuver within that to get what he needs. And you could see that everything that Trump now has been putting together, we're starting to see the economy really start to improve. And he said when he first came into office that we're going to see fuel prices really come down. We're going to see the economy improve. And he said we're going to probably see it in the latter part of 2025. And he's backing that up, saying in the next 5-6 months, we're really going to see the economy boom. Take a listen to what he says.
Wait till you see the boom that this country goes through in 5 or 6 months from now with all of the things that are happening. Car plants are getting ready to start built. Mm-hmm. They're going to be built by record numbers. The AI stuff is crazy, what's going on there. Billions and billions, trillions of dollars is being... And it's all going to start very shortly now. It's amazing. We've taken in almost $17 trillion of investments in this country. And wait till you see what happens. We're going to have a successful country like I think we've never had before.
And as we go into 2026, because of course we're approaching the midterms, we're going to see the economy roaring like we've never seen before. And I do believe that most likely Trump will probably get control over the interest rates at this point in time. Yes, the Fed's going to fight back. Yes, they're going to try to keep the rates the way they are all the way up to the midterms, because again, if the rates are lowered before the midterms, what do you think people are going to do? The people are going to go, holy crap, the economy is absolutely incredible. He did it. And now things are much better. And people are going to feel it. And if people are happy, you know what they're going to do in the midterms? They're going to vote for individuals that align with Trump. And this is going to be a big problem for the deep state players, the central bankers, and everybody else, because again, this goes against everything that they want. So I do believe now Trump is, just like with everything else, he is now removing all the deep state players, all these individuals that are part of the system. Remember, these individuals, they keep the illusion alive for the central bank. They keep the illusion alive for the criminal syndicate. They keep it alive by manipulating all the data and lying to the people over and over and over and over. And we could see it as plain as day now that this is all they do. And now it's coming to an end. And people, they're going to see a very big difference in the economy. And I do believe eventually what's going to happen is that the new system that he is creating, remember, this is all in preparation for the new system. The new system that he is creating, it is going to be more powerful than the central bank system. And eventually he'll be able to transition us away from the central bank system. And the central bank system will just be a system that nobody uses. a system that is just there, but no one is actually accessing it. They won't have the ability to lower rates, raise rates. They won't have the ability to control what was going on in the economy. We won't be borrowing currency from them. So they'll just be sitting there while we're on the new system, moving to a brand new currency. And at this point in time, I do believe this is when Bessent and others, they're going to say, you know something, maybe we should take a little bit of a review or an audit of the Fed and see what they've really been doing. Because again, once we're no longer dependent on them, they lose a lot of their power. And I do believe this is the time then that they can go in and poke around and take a look and then report to the American people, wait a minute, there's a lot of criminal activity. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of fraud, if they want to use those terms. Actually, it's just all criminal activity. That's what we see all over the place. And eventually, they're going to say, okay, we're going to do what we did with the other agencies. We're going to shut this baby down. We're going to restructure it. And this is going to be brought into the Treasury, and the people are going to control the creation of their currency. We're no longer going to borrow currency from a private West central bank system. And I do believe this is where all this is headed, and Trump is prepping everything, preparing everything, and soon we're going to see how this all works out. And I do believe the American people are going to be absolutely shocked in the end. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot. Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3669BN. Today's date is July 31st, 2025, and the title of the episode is Durham Annex Released. It proves Obama, Clinton, Soros, etc. were all in on the coup d'etat. Let's talk about our health. Speaking of digestive issues, this is caused by a potential toxin that's in all of the, quote, healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat with a fraudulent food pyramid for the longest time. And this potential toxin causes digestive issues, according to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist. This is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain, fatigue, digestive discomfort, and stiff joints, even skin problems. Well, Dr. Gundry explains these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually quickly over a matter of years and sometimes even decades. I can assure you that the damage is probably caused by these healthy foods, and it is far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix a problem from your own home. It's very simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain the hidden potential toxin. So you can find this yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/X22. That is gutcleanseprotocol.com/X22. Or click the link in the description, because after years of research, Dr. Gundry has decided to release an informative video to the public, free and uninterrupted, showcasing exactly which foods you need to avoid. Go find that video at gutcleanseprotocol.com/X22. That is gutcleanseprotocol.com/X22, or click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, they are now in a death spiral. And what's very, very interesting about all of this is that the news came out that the Durham Annex was released. And there's a lot of information in this showing that, yes, Obama, Clinton, Brennan Clapper, even Soros and many others, they were all involved in creating this gigantic hoax. Actually, what they did was they created a coup d'etat. Now, remember, when Trump was first coming into office, they thought their cheating system, their election cheating system, would be enough to make sure that Trump never got into office. This is why you had Nancy Pelosi, Obama, and the rest saying he'll never, ever be president. They all laughed about it because they knew that their cheating system installed people. They never counted on the Electoral College. This is what basically threw them. And this is why they said, whoa, what's going on here? He just bypassed our cheating system. Remember, they used the popular vote. Remember, Hillary Clinton actually got 3 million more votes than Trump. And since they had their cheating system in place, they always knew that the Electoral College went along with the popular vote. This time, they didn't. And that's why the Electoral College is put into place, to make sure that something like this doesn't happen. And they were shocked when this occurred because they thought, hey, listen, we're going to have a coup. Our cheating system will take care of it. He'll never be president. We won't have to worry about this again. They were shocked when he won. And then they went into overdrive because, again, now he's a duly elected president and they needed a plan to get rid of him. And that's when everything went full speed ahead. They created this coup d'etat. And think about it. They've been battling Trump since that day. It's the same people. It's the same group. And yes, they're the ones who unleashed COVID. They're the ones who overthrew the United States government. They're the ones who pushed all the indictments against Trump when he was running in 2024. They're the ones who tried to kill him multiple times. They are the people that did all of this. And who helped? Because without the fake news, they wouldn't be able to push any of this. Think about it. If they tried to push it and all the fake news didn't go along with it, do you think they'd be able to push the coup d'etat? Do you think they'd be able to push COVID? Do you think they'd be able to overthrow the United States government? Do you really think they would be able to do any of the things that they did? No, they wouldn't have. And what Trump is doing right now, he's showing the people of this country, and yes, there are people already that know all about this. I mean, we studied this going all the way back to 2018, moving forward. We were told about all of this, but think about the rest of the country. The rest of the country, what do they really know? They really don't know who's involved in this. Is this really a coup d'etat? And if you really look at CNN, you look at MSNBC, and you look at all the different other networks, are they all over this? Are they reporting on how Obama and team, they were all involved in the coup d'etat? When you go to NBC News or you go to any of these sites, are they all talking about it? No, they're not. They're not talking about any of these things. Why? Because how do you spin it? There's hard evidence now. There's documented proof. Some individual in the FBI decided to save the burn bag, decided to save the evidence. Who could have that been? We don't know. we'll probably find out. But this is just the beginning. Because you remember, Trump, he took every sling, he took every arrow, he went through it every single day for how many years? 8 years. He's still going through it with the judiciary. He's still going through it. And I don't believe the deep state players, they've stopped. Because again, when news comes out like this, you know they're going to have to try to shut it all down to distract the people. Now, I do believe they tried to do it with a false flag, maybe like a shooting, which we just had in New York City, but that didn't work out too well. Right now, the fake news is just ignoring all of it. But again, the people must know. They must understand who the players are, because this goes way beyond this. Because think about it. They actually overthrew the United States government. They actually had an insurrection against this country. And they released this benign virus onto the public, and they made everyone suffer because they wanted to keep their criminal syndicate system intact. And they didn't want the people to win. That's what this is really all about. So they used everything that they had. Now, Trump, I do believe he led him down this path. Go ahead, overthrow the United States government. We're just capturing the data. We got it all. Keep doing it. Because again, I'm not just going to get you on Russia collusion. I'm going to get you on every single thing that you did. And I want the people to see it. So as Trump releases this information to the public, these people are feeling pain. Yes, Brennan is out there. He's trying to spin everything, trying to convince people, no, it's not what you think it is. But again, it's not going to work. More and more people are going to talk about it. And remember, the fake news, they aren't the news anymore. The fake news, they're going to ignore it as they are right now. But you know what's happening? It's spreading throughout social media, and people, they're starting to hear it all over the place. And it's just going to get worse. This is the pain that Trump is delivering to all these people. He's educating the people right now. You must understand what they did. You must understand who the players are. You must understand how they did it, because I'm going to bring you down this path, and we're going down the path where I'm going to show you that they're the ones who had the insurrection. They're the ones who overthrow the United States government. They're the ones who released COVID. They're the ones who made you suffer and feel pain. They're the ones who did all of this to this country and to the people of this country. That is what people are going to see. And in the end, you know what's going to happen? There will be no escape. There'll be no spin. The people of this country, they will understand, they will know. And most of these people, they could either take the easy way out, they could try to run, but in the end, it's not going to work. In the end, we are going to get justice on these people. And Trump, he needs to show the people. The people must see it. So this never, ever happens again. It's a message to the entire criminal syndicate system and anyone else that's going to try to do this, that if you try, you will be arrested, tried for treason. So if you attempt to do this right now, once again in a couple of years, the people know. The people are watching. Remember, this is not about a 4-year election, an 8-year election. This is about taking the system back from these people. It's about returning the power to the people of this country. And once the people have the power again, and we're going with the Constitution, once we get rid of all these judges, the prosecutors, and all these other people that are completely against this country, we have the power then. And it's going to be very, very difficult for the deep state players to come back into existence, especially when you remove their funding, which Trump is doing right now. And the funding comes from the Federal Reserve. Remember, they're not using their own money. They're money laundering the money into what they need it for. And when you shut it off and you cut them off, they can't operate. So right now, we're shutting everything down. And eventually, when Trump has complete and utter control over the system, which I do believe we will win the House, we will win the Senate, he'll replace the judges, we'll have all his nominees confirmed. Once we're in a position of power and he has all the leverage, I mean, he has a lot of leverage right now. You could see all this information wouldn't be coming out right now unless he had leverage. It doesn't mean the deep state players aren't going to try to do something. I mean, if they can get their act together, they might try something. And I'm not talking about just like Obama and stuff. I'm talking about those people at the tippy top. Those people that are looking at all this going, okay, what's our next move? Because if we lose control of the central bank, if we lose control of all this, we're done for. So will they try something? Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see. But everyone should be prepared for something like that. But you can see Trump is in a very comfortable position right now because he knows that he has all the leverage. And he knows that he has control over the agencies. He knows that these agencies will now protect him, protect the people, and they're monitoring the situation. Very, very different from his first term. Very, very different from when Biden was in the White House. You see, he needed to take control of this to keep the people of this country safe. So he has the agencies, he has the military, and it doesn't mean the deep state players won't try something, but he's feeling pretty darn comfortable knowing that everyone is pretty much safe. Now, again, can he keep everyone safe on the local level? Of course not. I mean, that's completely and utterly impossible. Because think about how many towns, cities, and other places there are. But on a grand scale, he can make sure there's no nuclear war. He can make sure that we don't head into a war. And if you notice, he's putting out the fires every single place because what does the deep state players really want? They want us to go to war. This would solve all their problems, wouldn't it? A cyber attack would pretty much maybe solve their problems. Anything that they're going to try right now, I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they already know. And they already have countermeasures in place. And I don't think if they even attempt to do something, it's not going to be what they want it to be. Like with COVID, they were able to push this very, very hard because they had complete and utter control over the fake news. And they kept those tickers on the screens. People were afraid it was an invisible enemy. This time around, Trump is going to play this very, very different. If they try to use an invisible enemy, which is a cyber attack, and they try to convince everyone that something's happening when it really isn't, I do believe Trump has the ability to shut this all down and take control over the entire situation. Plus, this time around, it's very, very different because now we have additional platforms and we're not dependent on the deep state players' platforms. So yes, it's very, very different. Plus, Trump speaks directly to the people. He doesn't go through the fake news. He has his own social media company. He puts everything on social media. Plus, if he's going to do anything, he can speak directly to the people, and the fake news, they're pushed to the side this time around. But we should be aware that they might try something because think about it. As the fake news would say, the walls are closing in on them, and it's going to become very, very difficult for these people to actually even walk the streets in the end. I mean, think how bad this really looks. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about Harvard, because once again, you can see all these different universities. They are now folding and bending the knee to Trump. And Harvard, and Amuse put this out, was planning to spend $20,000 in taxpayer funds to buy 100 AC units for Boston residents. The school claims it can no longer afford to just give away the units on its own dime. Why does Harvard feel the need for federal support to pay for stuff completely unrelated to teaching students? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And once again, why don't they just use their own funds? Don't they have all this money just sitting there? Oh, wait, they don't want to use their own money. That's right. But you can see more and more universities right now, they're now settling with the United States government. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said, congratulations to Brown University on the settlement made with the United States government. There will be no more anti-Semitism or anti-Christian or anti-anything else. Woke is officially dead at Brown. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And once again, you can see that every single university now is taking a knee to Trump. They're folding because, again, they're in the wrong. And this was the deep state's agenda. They were pushing and training the next generation. Now it's completely and utterly falling apart, just like it's completely falling apart with what happened out in Cincinnati. And you could see that the police chief out there was trying to say that, the white individuals, they deserved it. They begged for it. Well, what's very interesting is there's a picture of one of the individuals, and she has this huge black eye, black lips. I mean, that you could see that she really received a beating. Libs of TikTok put this out and said, so just to summarize, a city councilor said she begged for this. Police chief said social media is misrepresenting it. A woke judge let the attacker out for $400. And yes, there was a councilwoman, Victoria Parks, who said she was grateful that Holly was beaten unconscious. These people should be removed from their positions immediately. Again, we need to make sure, and again, we know why a lot of these people were put into place, because again, all these elections and everything else, everything is rigged. Once we get rid of the rigged system, we're going to have people that are going to take these positions, and these people are going to actually represent the people in their community, the people in their state, the people in the entire country. Because again, with the rigged system, all they're doing is keeping the same people in government forever. I mean, just look at Schumer, look at Pelosi, look at McConnell, look at all these individuals, the staffers, they never leave. I do believe in government, everyone should have some type of limit. These people should not stay there forever. There should be people that come in and replace them. Remember, our founding fathers never wanted anyone to stay in government forever. They wanted people to have a job or own a business, come into government, serve, and then leave, keeping their connection to the people on the street. But what do we have today? We have these people that are completely disconnected, people that are installed, people that made their lives in politics, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I do believe in the end, everything is going to change. Because again, government should just be a specific time period to serve your country. And then you go back to your life. This way, you don't have a criminal syndicate that is entrenched in D.C., entrenched in other places. But we'll have to see how this plays out. I do believe Trump is leaning towards this. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that auto accidents, they have fallen by 10% in major cities amid reports of lighter traffic. Now, a lot of people are saying, listen, because of the deportations, what we're seeing now is all these illegals, they're being removed, and we're seeing less accidents now. DC Drainer responded to this and said, literally every single part of our lives gets better when with mass deportations. And I do believe he's absolutely correct on this. And you can see that the deep state players, they're panicking over everything that Trump is doing. And this time around, Trump is not holding back. He's not saying, oh, we can't do this. He's plowing through everything that he wanted to do. And every time the deep state players or the D's or the fake news try to call him out on it, guess what? The people don't care what they're saying. They don't believe them. They don't care. They're with the president. And you could see all the D's, they're all in lockstep in calling out Trump in regards to Medicare and Medicaid. And you could see Sheldon Whitehouse. You could see Representative Norm Torres, Hakeem Jeffries, Governor Josh Shapiro, Steny Hoyer, Dick Durbin, Cory Booker, and many, many, many others. They all put out the exact same message. For 60 years after Medicare and Medicaid became law, Trump gutted them. His big, ugly bill will strip health care from the 15 million people, 2.3 million in California, 28 rural hospitals will shut down. No, what it's going to do, it's going to remove all the illegals that have been sucking the benefits out of Medicare and Medicaid. That is what it's going to do. And this is what they're most afraid of. They're afraid that, wait a minute, all the illegals that come into this country who are getting the benefits, getting pay, who they protect, they're going to be losing all of this, which means these individuals, they'll be just without any of it. And again, this is going to be a major problem for them because once all this is removed from these people, They can't use these people to what? Cheat? To pretend that they're citizens? They lose control over all these people because remember, they're handing out money, they're handing out benefits, they're handing out everything. When it's all gone, how do you keep them? How do you make them do the things you want them to do? It's very, very difficult, especially when they're on their own, if they actually do want to become a citizen. And when they start to realize, wait a minute, I'm not dependent on these people anymore and I actually have to work for it. Well, guess what? I'm going to do what's best for my family then. Now, most of these people, they're not family members. Most of these people are going to be deported. Most of these people are criminals. So most of these people are going to be removed. And this is why the D's are so panicked right now. And Trump, he's shifting everything to help the people of this country and those people that defend this country. He has now signed a bill to help prevent home foreclosure among American veterans. Now, number one, those people who defend our nation, those people that serve our nation, their homes should have never, ever been taken away from them. And the people that serve this nation to keep us free, they should be put on a pedestal. They are the protected class, not the trans movement. These people should get every benefit, not the illegals. They should get the best health care, not the illegals. They should be the ones that we take care of because they went out there, they put their lives on the line. They could be killed. A lot of people were killed. These are the people that we should be protecting. And that's exactly what Trump is doing right now. He's protecting all of these people. And I do believe he's going to continue to protect all these people as we go down the line. And you can see the deep state players, everything that they set up in their criminal system, well, it's all completely and utterly falling apart. And actually, Trump is going to be streamlining everything. And these long call waits and the way the government works, I think everything is about to change. I mean, think about what Elon did. He had a lot of libtards working in X. A lot of them. Did nothing in there. He got rid of most of them and shrunk it way, way down. Is X still running okay? Actually, X is running better than ever. What do you think Trump and team and Doge, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to get rid of all these people that are a waste, that really don't do anything, and they're going to shrink it down, and it's going to work. It's going to be efficient. It's going to run beautifully. And people are going to be absolutely shocked when they see this. Now, Trump, since he came back from Scotland, we know that the UK, they are now censoring people. They're going after certain social media companies. And Trump, he is warning the UK Prime Minister to stop threatening American companies. Charlie Kirk put this out and said, President Trump has warned UK Prime Minister to stop threatening American companies with the country's absurd new Online Safety Act. American companies like X, Truth, and Meta are forced to either censor speech or face severe fines. Fun fact, UK's ridiculous anti-free speech law even prohibits illegal content that criticizes illegal immigration and people smuggling. If our allies in Europe do not treat free speech as sacrosanct, then the Western world will collapse. America should absolutely use every form of leverage we have to insist they live up to their own values and ideals. And you have to remember, these countries, they don't have the First Amendment. Not like the United States. This is why they can push the hate speech laws. This is why they can say this is what you can say and what you can't say. They tried it here in this country, but guess what? It doesn't work. Because again, the Constitution protects we the people. The government must abide by our contract. They signed our contract. See, in other countries, it's the other way around. The government gave the people a contract, and they don't have to follow it. So once again, we could see it's very, very different here in the United States. And we could see that Trump now, he is putting a lot of pressure on Brazil. He's actually increasing the tariffs there, and he is now going after certain individuals like Judge Voldemort. He does look like Voldemort, but this is Alexandre de Moraes. And remember, he was used to stop Bolsonaro. He was going after Elon Musk. And now we could see that, well, the time has come that he is sanctioned. Autism Capital put this out and said, infamous Brazilian Judge Voldemort, Alexandre de Moraes, who gained notoriety after deliberately targeting Elon Musk and X in Brazil, has officially been sanctioned by the U.S. and has had all his assets frozen and barred from doing business. F around, find out. And you can see at this point, these installed individuals in Canada, France, UK, and probably other places, they're all now getting together, and you can see this is all planned, where they're going to recognize Palestine as a state in September. So basically, they're bullying Israel, they're bullying Trump, and you can see that France, UK, and Canada have now all joined together. Trump responded to Carney and said, wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada. And once again, you have to remember, who do you think is pushing all these protests here in the United States and around the world? It's the same exact people. Remember, Palestine, this is their state-funded terrorist group. And I don't know why people are believing Hamas and what's coming out of Palestine, where there's people that are starving and things like that. And this is absolutely ridiculous. You know what's interesting? The American healthcare system is broken. Big pharma charges an arm and a leg for their product, while insurance companies are focused on growing healthcare spending. So I'm always researching ways to take care of myself naturally. And one of those overlooked factors is improving your blood flow. That means more oxygen and nutrients to your brain, heart, muscles, and even places that need a little extra help as you age. I use Blood Flow 7 from Juvenon. It works by boosting nitric oxide levels to 230% and opening arteries up to 62% to improve blood flow. With just one dose a day, it helps improve my stamina, energy, focus, and supported my heart health, all without caffeine or stimulants. It's doctor formulated, scientifically backed, with premium and natural ingredients. Look, I wouldn't share it if it didn't work for me. Go to bloodflow7.com/X22 or click the link in the description below to learn more today. Why would you believe a state-funded nation? Think about that for a second. And every time they come out with this, it's always debunked over and over and over. And think about it. Has Hamas made a deal? Have they said, okay, we'll return all the hostages? No, they haven't. Ask yourself why. So the U.S. right now, they impose sanctions on Palestinian authorities and PLO officials, including denying visas for failing to meet commitments. Trump responded to everything and said, the fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages. So if the Palestinian, they want peace, they want to go on with their lives, why don't they turn on Hamas? Why isn't there an uprising? Because a lot of these individuals are intertwined with Hamas. And you can see that as of right now, it's a state-funded terrorist system. And who's funding it? The deep state, of course. That's why you have Canada, Carney, who's installed, Macron, who's installed, Keir Starmer, who's installed. They're all the same. This is why they're pushing all of this at the same time. I mean, I remember going back in time when we were in Syria and they kept saying that Assad was gassing his own people. And it turned out, wait a minute, it wasn't Assad. It was the Islamic State that was doing that. And who was controlling the Islamic State? Who was bombing so the Islamic State would grow and actually capture more territory? Oh, that was Obama. So why in the world would people believe what is coming out of that area? I mean, who are the sources? Who's actually seeing this? Does anyone really have proof of what's going on? People say they do, but when you start to backtrack and you start to look at where all this is coming from, the sources are very, very weak. And it seems that people are just repeating a lot of these things. So Trump, he's letting everyone know, listen, to end all of this, let's get rid of Hamas. Have them surrender. He said this before. Actually, he said, well, it looks like we're going to have to hunt them down. Why would he say we have to hunt down Hamas? Remember, it's a terrorist group. They used to, hide under hospitals? They used to hide under schools. They used to build their bases there, put their weapons there. They didn't care what happened to the people there. Actually, it's almost like Ukraine. The neo-Nazis in Ukraine, where did they set up shop? They set up shop in shopping centers, in hospitals, in schools. And then they lied about, oh, look, Russia fired a missile and hit a hospital. Oh, wait, no, it wasn't. It was Ukraine. It was their missile that they fired and it malfunctioned and fell on the hospital. Again, you could see it's the same exact people over and over and over. It's the deep state trying to push their agenda, but it's failing, just like everything else. Actually, we could see that Nancy Pelosi is in trouble right now. Remember, Trump has called her out, saying you're doing inside trading. And of course, Nancy Pelosi appeared on CNN with Jake Tapper, and she said this is ridiculous. Actually, she didn't even want to really answer. And she said, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. My husband is doing all the trades. Well, really think about it. All these people that launder the money, they say, I'm not doing anything. They launder it to their spouses. So Nancy Pelosi just has her spouse doing the trades. She's feeding him the information. He's doing the trades. I mean, is that really that difficult? Absolutely not. And again, how did she make all this money? You're telling me that her husband is so good that he has the ability to beat, 70% of the hedge fund managers? He's that incredible. You know, the guy that, was holding a hammer and a drink in his underwear when he opened the door and his boyfriend was standing right next to him? I mean, come on. Is anyone really believing this? I don't think so. Carolyn Levitt said the following. Autism Capital put this out. The reason banning members of Congress from trading stocks is a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. She is rightfully criticized because she makes $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio grew 70% in 1 year and outperformed every single large hedge fund and doubled even the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. The president stands with the American people on this and doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. Absolutely. Now, what's very interesting is that we know that Josh Hawley, he introduced the Pelosi Act. And something happened during this period of time. Now, the Pelosi Act is preventing elected leaders from owning securities in an investment act. And he's pushing this, but there was an amendment tied to this, and Senator Josh Hawley did not like this. So a bill that he created aimed at banning members of Congress, the president, the vice president, and their spouses from trading or holding individual stocks while in office. On July 30th, 2025, Hawley was the only Republican to vote with Democrats on the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee to advance this legislation out of committee, passing it by an 8-4 vote. During the committee process, Hawley joined Democrats in blocking an amendment proposed by Senator Rick Scott, Republican of Florida, which would have required a review or investigation into Nancy Pelosi's stock trading activities over the past 25 years. This amendment had support from nearly all other Republicans, but was defeated, reportedly after information about it was released shortly before the vote. Hawley later stated that he had a conversation with Trump, who reiterated support for banning stock trading by figures like Pelosi, though Trump publicly criticized Hawley for blocking the review. Pelosi herself expressed support for Hawley's bill. Yes, Hawley's bill is fine, but why didn't he want her to be investigated? That doesn't make any sense. Trump, he put this out and he said the following. Why would one Republican, Senator Josh Hawley, from the great state of Missouri, join with all the Democrats to block a review sponsored by Senator Rick Scott and with the support of almost all other Republicans of Nancy Pelosi's stock trading over the last 25 years? The information was inappropriately released just minutes before the vote, very much like sabotage. The Democrats, because of our tremendous achievements and success, have been trying to target me for a long period of time. And they're using Josh Hawley, who got elected twice, as a pawn to help them. I wonder why Hawley would pass a bill that Nancy Pelosi is in absolute love with. He is playing right into the dirty hands of the Democrats. It's a great bill for her and her husband, but so bad for our country. I don't think real Republicans want to see their president, who has had unprecedented success, targeted because of the whims of a second-tier senator named Josh Hawley. Absolutely. So why shouldn't we investigate her? We should. And I do believe there needs to be an investigation. We'll have to see how this all plays out. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the Durham Annex classified information came out. It was all declassified. And we know that there was a burn bag of information that was not destroyed. It was saved. And there was an individual that actually saved this. 17 Absolute Redo 76 put this out and said, it's crazy how all the FBI corruption that stayed buried for years all of a sudden began creeping to the surface while Wray was the director. Crazy that thousands of documents sat in a room in burn bags for years, but Wray never saw fit to make sure they actually got burned. Also crazy that Wray visited every single field office in the first 6 months on the job, almost like he was getting the lay of the land. Like I've said for years, folks should really familiarize themselves with the Culper ring and their tactics. Now, this is very, very interesting because we know within the Q post, it says, Wray's a sleeper. Now, once again, was Wray actually keeping this, or were there is someone else in the FBI actually keeping all this information and making sure that it wasn't destroyed? Now, that is very, very interesting. I do believe very, very soon we're going to find out who it is. And General Mike Flynn said all of these burn bag documents will have fingerprints on these documents. If you were one of the people responsible for trying to destroy this evidence, you need to come forward now. So this is going to be very, very interesting as we move forward. Now, remember, Hillary Clinton, Obama, Brennan Clapper, Soros, and many, many others, they were all behind this. And they're the ones who created the coup d'etat. And what's very interesting, we know that Brennan Clapper, Hillary Clinton, Comey, and the rest, they continually went on the fake news and they actually built the narrative up. Hillary Clinton and James Comey and many others also tweeted out during this period of time, adding fuel to the fire. Remember when Hillary Clinton put this out? Computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russia-based bank. Well, we know that she's the one who created all this. She's the one who paid for it. It was in the Durham trial. Hillary Clinton was responsible for all that, and she put out a tweet blaming it on Trump. But she's the one who created that. Isn't that interesting? And when Robert Mueller was investigating all of this, guess what? He never interviewed any of the actors like Brennan, Clapper, and the rest. Paul Sperry put this out and said, Special Counsel Robert Mueller never interviewed John Brennan or James Clapper and just treated their sham, politicized ICA as the gold standard. Worse, Mueller commissioned Brennan's handpicked ICA author, Susan Miller, a fellow Trump hater, to help author his own report. Now, isn't that interesting? So the Durham Annex was declassified. And we've come to learn that Hillary Clinton conspired with Obama's FBI to fabricate the Russian collusion, which I think we all know. Susan Miller right now, and Paul Sperry put this out, now confesses she in fact did not write the ICA. Who put her up to this media charade? Susan Miller conned NBC News, CNN, CBS News, Michael Isikoff into thinking she was the lead author of the ICA. She is either a complete wackadoodle or she was sent out there to shield the real author. Was the real author someone that worked for Hillary Clinton? Most likely, yes. Was the real author Brennan? Did he edit the ICA? Oh, of course he did. Paul Sperry, once again. Despite testifying under oath, he had no hand in drafting the ICA. Sources familiar with the drafting of the ICA say Brennan personally edited parts of the final draft. And CIA witnesses could attest to his role in changing wording in the doc if asked by FBI in perjury probe. So let's say Brennan had a hand.
Hi, just checking on stocks. Stocks are up a little bit. There you go. It's not the end of the world yet. Let me check on your comments, make sure they're working. And then we're going to have some fun. Happy Wednesday. We got lots of room in here. Come on in. Doesn't it feel like you're actually going to a real place? And if you close your eyes and just listen to me talking to you, you'll be pretty sure you're the only person I'm talking to. It'd be like getting a phone call from your boring friend who just wants to talk about the news all the time. Okay, that's me. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of human civilization. It's called Coffee with Scott Adams, and you've never had a better time. But if you'd like to take a chance on elevating this experience up to levels that no one can even understand with their tiny, shiny human brains, all you need for that is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, shells or stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip. And it happens now. One word, exquisite. Well, I wonder if there are any studies that could have been skipped just by asking Scott. Oh, here's one. The AP is talking about a poll that they did. So the AP did a poll, and they discovered, I know this will be a shocker for you, that young adults are less likely to follow politics or say voting is important. Huh. How in the world would we ever know the young people are less likely to follow politics? Would it be if you had ever met even one young person in your life? How many young people do you know who are following politics? I don't know any. I literally don't know any in my real life. So, yeah, I'm sure you got some, a few people who are doing it, but no, just ask me. Next time you want to know, hey, who's paying attention to politics? Is it young people or is it older people? I'll tell you. Well, I just saw before I went live here that Howard Stern will not be renewed by Sirius. So Howard Stern just got canceled. And I shouldn't feel happy about it. I mean, he's probably worth, I don't know, $500 million or something. So he'll do okay. It's probably time. But does it seem to you that everything that's anti-Trump is having a bad year? Does it seem like that to you? It feels like that. I feel like Trump has outlasted all of the media entities that were after him. And Howard Stern was no friend to his. I also understand that the Republicans in Congress are subpoenaing the Clintons to talk about Epstein's Island or Epstein or something. And I don't know what they think will come out of that. But obviously, they're just trying to control the summer headlines. Let me tell you, this administration has done the best job I've ever seen of managing the headlines across the summer, so that Trump is always giving us, and the Republicans, they're just continuously giving us something to talk about that isn't really very important, but it's something to talk about during the summer. All right. Apparently, according to Futurism, and Victor Tangerman, he's writing that job seekers now, when they think they're going to an interview with a real live company, find that the interviewer is an AI. So there are people who think they're going for an actual human-to-human job interview, and they're either put in front of a computer or they do it from home, I guess, without having to go in. But people are having a tough time getting past the AI. To which I asked the following question. How bad would you have to be interviewing for an AI to stop you? How many of you could not lie your way past an artificial intelligence at this stage of their artificial intelligence? I mean, really? You couldn't figure out how to lie your way past an AI until you could get to a real person? Come on. How hard would it be? Because the AI is not programmed to distrust you. So it's going to believe anything you tell it. And if you just simply act like the most awesome person in the world, do you think the AI would know the difference? Do you think the AI could even tell if you were being sarcastic? As soon as you get the AI, just say, oh, it's good to see you. I can't wait until I go back to feeding the poor, and I've got a patent I'm working on that will give free energy to the world, and I'd sure like to talk to a real live human. All right, well, I'll give you lessons on how to thwart the AI interview. Well, the New York Times has a story that says that there have been 400,000 cases of reported sexual assault and sexual misconduct in Uber rides from 2017 to 2022. Now, that's not funny because, these are serious accusations, but 400,000? Now, I guess that would include, every kind of sexual comment and language and stuff like that. But holy cow, it's hard. I can't even imagine being female and getting into an Uber at this point, because the odds are not good. I sometimes forget what it's like to be male and how I'm not really afraid of anything in public. Do any of you have that experience? Even if you go someplace where, maybe it's not the safest place, you just have this sort of cone of safety around you because you're male. Nobody's going to want to, sexually attack me. If they thought they wanted to rob me, they'd, better have a good weapon. So it must be terrible. I mean, I'm being serious, by the way. I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that if I just wanted to take a ride in a cab-like unit, that I'd be putting my honor and my life at risk. I never feel that way. I've just never had that experience. To me, just everything's about the same level of risk. I don't even notice. Wow. So will the driverless cabs have an advantage over Uber? Oh, yes, they will. So Uber, I'm not entirely sure how they survive in the long run. In the short run, sure. But don't they have to be replaced by driverless cars because the drivers are the big risk? Feels like inevitable. Well, Tulsi Gabbard was on a podcast, Pod Force One, and she was being asked about aliens, because she's the DNI head, so she would be the one to know. In theory, by now, Tulsi Gabbard would know more, or at least have the authority to know more, about the potential that there are aliens that have visited or might visit the Earth than anyone else alive. So, wouldn't you like to know what she says about it? She still has a lot of questions about the New Jersey drone incidents and believes that there's more to that story than what the government has told us, meaning that the government doesn't really know what was going on, and that the sightings were a lot more than New Jersey. So there was something massive that was going on, and the government doesn't know what it was. So that's a little bit scary. Doesn't mean it's aliens, just doesn't means we're underinformed. And she was, by the way, she was talking to Miranda Devine. And she said she has a lot of questions unanswered about the New Jersey drones. And then in terms of the larger question of, aliens, she said she's, quote, there's nothing that she's prepared to talk about. And that her team will be transparent when the time is right. And that they continue to look for the truth so that they can share it with the American people. So doesn't that sort of suggest that whatever it is that she knows, which would be, in theory, more than anybody knows, she would know more than anybody, and she's not willing to say there's no such thing as aliens. Isn't that interesting? Because if what she knew is that there were no credible alien anythings, wouldn't she tell us that? Yes, we've been looking into it for years. That's the first thing I looked into when I got all the top secret clearances. And I can assure you that there's nothing credible that looks like an alien. She was not willing to say that. She's still got questions. I don't know what to make of that. Now, personally, I do not believe there are any aliens who have visited or will visit. So I'm not a believer. But just to make it fun, there is a new UFO whistleblower, just a random-looking guy on social media, who believes that in his day job he was made aware by I guess an email that went to him that wasn't supposed to. So this is such a bad story. Don't believe anything I'm about to say. It was on social media, so I'm not making it up. But I would say the credibility is quite low. So allegedly, somebody who worked for the Pentagon got an email that was meant for somebody with a similar name, but it wasn't meant for him. And he alleges that he learned that the Pentagon expects contact with a sentient alien force on October 29th. Now, is it my imagination, or was there not an actual movie that involved aliens visiting the Earth? It was E.T., right? Didn't E.T. come to Earth coincidentally on Halloween, so that he could walk around and nobody would know it was an alien? So these sentient beings are supposed to show up around October 29th. Will they reveal themselves on October 31st on Halloween? I wonder. Well, I know what my costume is going to be. I will be one of those aliens. All right. So we're not even going to notice. We might have aliens walking among us all Halloween day, and we'll just say, nice costume. Where'd you get that? Well, here's a story that I don't know if I can truly express. Some things you have to see, and you're just listening to me, so you don't get to see it. But Google, their AI, Genie, it's now Genie 3. I saw a demo of the worlds it can create for you with one prompt. So you might write one sentence that says, it's the beach, and a perfect beach will appear. But it won't be just a static picture of a beach. It'll be a video of a beach. Well, it'll seem like a simulated reality. And you could look around in all directions, and it would create itself in real time as you were turning to look. So nothing would be there until you wanted to look in that direction, and it would create it. So it would be a complete simulated world. And then you can add stuff to it with just another prompt. So you could say, and there's a unicorn. And then a unicorn would, gallop by. That would look exactly like it's a real unicorn, because I've seen a lot of real unicorns, and you can tell the difference. from the fake ones. But you might be saying to me, Scott, every day there's another report of wow, you can make a little movie scene. But this is the first one that can remember changes and make itself on the go. So it showed a demonstration where somebody told it to put some paint on a wall, and then you could go wander around in other places. And when you come back, that paint will still be on the wall right where you put it. So aren't we very close to being able to create a simulated environment with a simulated creature that says it's sentient and says it's conscious and acts like it has purpose and reason and curiosity and all the things that humans have? How far away are we from knowing that we are a simulation ourselves because we created one where the person in the simulation swears they're real and has no way to know they're not? And the answer is 1 year. We are 1 year away from knowing for sure that we are a simulation, because we will be able to create one. And once we've created one, do you think we'll create another one? Of course, because it'd be easy to create another one once you've done it once. And once we had more simulated worlds than we had real ones, and all the characters within the simulated worlds believe they're real and act like they believe it, and they seem to have consciousness as far as we can tell. Because remember, I can't tell that you're conscious. I just have an impression. I think I'm conscious because of my internal sensation of it, but I don't know that you are. I mean, I don't know it. So if we created these artificial worlds where there were characters that, let's say, were not conscious, but it seemed like it to us, it would be just like people. So the whole world will be very different in 1 year, partly because we'll understand our true nature much better. Trump administration continues to do smart things when it comes to simplifying regulations. So I guess the Trump administration is going to look at drone approval process. So if you were an entrepreneur and you want to start a drone company and you wanted it to do something that wasn't strictly approved already, it would be really hard to get approval, even if you were asking for something quite, harmless. So apparently there's a tangle of regulatory things that can be simplified and would help the U.S. become dominant in drones. Because if there's one thing I know, we got to be dominant in drones. I think one of the things that Trump is doing a great job in is teaching us that everything's a competition and that drones are not just a cool new technology. They are something we better be better than everybody else at. AI isn't just a new user interface. It's something that the U.S. is going to have to be the best at, or we're going to pay for that. Same with our economy, same with our military, etc. We don't really have an option of falling behind. We're letting other countries be our manufacturing base or stuff like that. So I do love the fact that Trump makes you think everything is a, winner-take-all battle, because it kind of is. And it feels like that makes you do the right stuff. All right. So, according to Newsmax, Missouri is thinking about doing a little redistricting, redrawing the map so that they have more Republicans in that case. But did you know the according to the Wall Street Apes account I saw on X, that the real reason that the Democrats don't like Texas doing the gerrymandering, aside from the obvious it creates more positions for Republicans in Congress, the reason they don't like it is that even though California could match it and they could do their own redistricting and cancel out what Texas did, that if all the states did that, here's what you would discover. You would discover that the only Democratic states that haven't completely done it so far are New York and California. But apparently there are more states that are Republican-leaning that haven't fully maximized their redistricting and gerrymandering, that if both sides went completely wild and just gerrymandered everything they could as soon as they could, Republicans would come out way ahead. How many of you knew that? Now, I only know it because I read the Wall Street Apes account, so I'm going to take their word for it because it showed details, etc. But isn't that the most important part of the story? The most important part of the story is that the Democrats can't call the Republicans bluff, because the bluff is, hey, if you do that, we'll do this, and then it'll be this war of redistricting. The Republicans would love a war of redistricting because they have more ammunition and they would come out ahead. So the weird thing is that not only are the Democrats, just guaranteed to lose when it comes to the Texas politicians who left town so that there wouldn't be a quorum, so that there wouldn't be a finalized vote, so that they wouldn't redistrict and add some Republicans. They don't really have a chance of winning that, right? There's no path to victory. All they're doing is, sort of demonstrating in a way that gets some attention. But ultimately, they're going to lose. So I did a little micro lesson for my subscribers earlier this morning, but I'll give you a summary of it. If you'd like to learn how to be a Democrat consultant and give them good advice, here's how you do it. The Democrats' problem, as we all know, is that they have terrible policies or none at all, and terrible candidates or none at all. So what do you do if you have bad policies and bad candidates? Well, as your Democrat consultant, let me tell you, number one, you need to curse a lot more. You need to do a lot more cursing. But you also have to pretend that you're fighting, which is largely something you do with words and by making your eyes really wide, like this. Oh, we're going to fight. We're really going to fight. Fight. Yeah, we can't let them push us around anymore. We're going to take a knife to a knife fight. Fight. So it doesn't do anything, but you got to make your eyes really wide and say a lot of fighting words, and that will help. So you got your swearing and your fighting words. And then it would be good to put on some skits, like leaving the city and doing some videos of you on the tarmac and stuff like that. Nothing that will make the world any different. It's more like a little movie skit, something that you used to do for your parents when you were 8, that sort of thing. So do a skit. So you got your cursing, your saucer-eyed complaining with words that sound like fight. Okay. And then you should also do some cringy social media videos. If you do all of those things, the cursing, the cringy videos, the skits, if you get it all right, especially the saucer eyes, then you have a pretty good chance that you can get your Democrat approval level up to 23%. And of course, you'll have no power in the government whatsoever. But the important thing is that I, as your consultant, was well compensated. So that's your micro lesson of the day, how to be a Democrat consultant. You're welcome. Well, Stanford University is going to lay off 360 employees, and they cite it's because of Trump's policies. Newsmax is reporting that. Now, my first question was 360 employees, and here I'm only being partly serious when I say, I asked myself, how many employees do you need to run all of Stanford? Because if you had asked me how many employees does Stanford have, just the total number of employees, I would have said, I don't know. They must have about 400 employees. But they're laying off 360. So I went to Grok and I said, how many employees are there at Stanford? And the answer is 25,000. They have 25,000 employees. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. How many students do they have? So now this is according to Grok, so who knows? But apparently they only have 18,000 students. Now, that sounds worse than it really is. So they have 18,000 students and 25,000 staff. But that's because Stanford's not like a regular college. They are so important that they also have a whole bunch of, what do they have? Research institutions and with extensive operations, and they've got a medical school and all that. So there's a big part of the operation that's not, classrooms and teachers. But did you know that? So 360 people laid off out of 25,000. It's less than 2%. But if you can blame it on Trump, it becomes a headline story. So they did. Let's see. Can you guess who was behind funding the Texas politicians to get out of town so there wouldn't be a quorum, so there wouldn't be a vote on redistricting? Well, if you guessed, that sounds like something that Soros organization might have done, you would be right, according to some. And then there's also a report that Beto O'Rourke has some political action committee that also may have paid for it. So Beto and George Soros, a couple of winners right there. Some say Pritzker. Yeah, I think Pritzker was part of that too. So here's some news that I guess is good news. There's an AP NORC poll, N-O-R-C, I don't know what that stands for, that was just released. They found a significant drop in U.S. adults who perceive there to be racial discrimination against Black Americans. So a big drop in people who perceive it. And so today, 45% of those polled say there was a great deal of discrimination, or quite a bit, against Black Americans. But this is down. 45% sounds like a big number, right? If you're talking about discrimination against one group of people. But it's down from 61% when they started the poll in 2021. So that was only a year after George Floyd. So, do you think that's accurate? Do you think so? 45% says a great deal of discrimination against Black Americans. How many of you would agree with there's a great deal of discrimination against Black Americans? I'll give you the correct answer. The correct answer is it depends where you are. It just depends. There are definitely places in this big old country where there would be more discrimination against you if you're not whatever the people who already live there are. That definitely exists. But there are also pockets, big ones, like every Fortune 500 company and the entire government, in which being a member of a minority group would give you a leg up, and the discrimination would be the opposite there. So it cannot be said that America, on average, is biased one way or the other because it just depends where you are. You could find bias in any direction you want, depending on what pocket of America you find yourself in. So here's my advice. If you find yourself in a place that's bad for you for any reason whatsoever, and there's a place that would not be the case, you should think about moving to the place where it wouldn't be the case. So if you're Black American and you're in a place where there is, quote, a great deal of discrimination against you, I don't know exactly where that would be, but I accept that such places exist. But it's got to be pretty easy to find a place where that's not the case. It can't be that difficult. Most places would not have that as an issue. Well, allegedly, according to the FBI, violent crime is falling. The rate is falling. Dropped, let's see, compared 2024 compared to 2023, murder and non-negligent manslaughter dropped 15%. Do you believe any crime data? I feel like I'm so jaded and cynical at this point that if you tell me, hey, I've got some new data on crime, I say, well, is it as accurate as our jobs data? Is it as accurate as our climate models? Is it as accurate as all the smart economists predicting what would happen this summer because of tariffs? I don't know. I don't know what to believe. But I'll tell you one thing I don't believe is crime statistics from one year to the next. There's just too much going on. And I think I saw some posts from Mike Cernovich yesterday in which he was talking about the known ways to game the crime numbers. The basic idea is that if you charge people with less than the maximum crime, it might look like crime is falling, but it would be just a reflection that people aren't being charged what they used to be charged. So you could do it that way. And there was some other way that he mentioned that you could game it. Oh, just not taking the calls. Just process fewer complaints and it would look like the crime went down when actually you're just being inefficient. Something like that. So I don't believe any of those numbers. But it would be good if they're heading in the right direction. Well, Trump was asked whether J.D. Vance is the heir apparent to MAGA or not. And he gave what started out to be a very direct answer, and then he Trumpetized it at the end in his classic way. He said, quote, I think most likely, meaning that J.D. Vance would be the heir to MAGA. He goes, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. And I think Marco is also somebody that would get together with JD in some form. See, that's the perfect part. He would get together with JD in some form. Now, are they suggesting that Marco would be the vice presidential candidate? Or stay on at Secretary of State? That seems less likely. And would Rubio be willing to be second behind J.D. Vance, who's younger and less experienced? Well, I don't know. Maybe. So Trump has this way of injecting something that looks like, something that looks like he answered the question. So it doesn't look like he's avoiding the question. But he inserts a little mystery into it as to what role Marco would have, Marco Rubio. But I love the fact that there are, two people that you could feel could make things work without Trump. He leaves a little mystery. That's Trump's magic. According to, it was a recent poll, Rasmussen poll. and One American News is reporting on this. Most voters now, a majority, believe that the Obama administration likely committed crimes in Russiagate. So Russiagate being, running the hoax and covering it up and knowing that the Steele dossier was fake. And essentially running, just this major operation on the public and on Trump. So 54% believe that former members of Barack Obama's national security team probably committed crimes. Now, as you know, we don't know the names of the people, but some amount of people have been turned over to the grand jury process by the Department of Justice. So there will be likely, because grand juries usually indict, so it's likely that there will be indictments for Barack Obama's ex-security team, the Brennans and Clappers and whatnot. Now, do you think the country could handle Barack Obama being convicted of a crime and jailed? Do you think they could handle that? The answer is yes and no. The beauty is, if they have the option, they should not go after Barack Obama first. They should not go after him first. You want to break the country in. So you might go after, let's say, a John Brennan, where, let's say, the evidence is stronger. I don't know that that's true, but based on the reports, it sounds like it is. So the Brennan story, if they convicted him, it would be in the headlines and it would get everybody used to the fact that some bad stuff happened in the Obama administration. Now, let's say that Brennan got convicted and it educated the public on the whole situation. Then let's say they went after, I don't know, another one, but it wasn't Obama. By the time they decided to go after Obama, assuming they had the goods, and I don't know that they do, the country would be used to it. They would understand that if the people worked for him, if there's an indication that Obama was in on it, people would just say, "Oh, damn it, we don't like this, but it's not where I'm not gonna fight my final fight over this." So I feel like we're actually in a world in which Obama could be convicted and jailed. And here's the main reason why. Because the lawfare against Trump opened the door for jailing ex-presidents. You just had to have the goods. The Democrats didn't get it done, but it allowed us to imagine the unimaginable, that an ex-president could be jailed. So because of that, and because it wasn't Trump who broke the seal, he's not the one who started the idea that you jail him. In fact, he did the opposite. He didn't go after Hillary Clinton. She was never president. But same situation. He had decided not to go after her when he probably could have. Well, I think that may have changed. So yeah, I do believe that as much as people would holler, we are at a point where if the evidence showed, and if it came after Brennan, and maybe after others, who knows, the country would very grudgingly and with a lot of friction would accept it. And that's a very rare situation. I don't think we've ever been in this situation where that's even something you can voice without sounding like you're crazy. But now it doesn't sound crazy, does it? It sounds very doable. So sure enough, the grand jury is forming. It almost doesn't seem real. At the same time, we hear that Adam Schiff is under criminal investigation for his alleged mortgage fraud violations. Now, the charge is that he had two homes, one near Washington and one in California, where he's a senator from, and that at various times he's claimed both of them as his primary residence, which would be illegal. So that's happening, and so I think it was Bill Pulte who kind of pushed forward these allegations, and now they seem to have been reached into the criminal realm. So there's some chance that by the end of the Trump term, let's see, what would today's score be? It would be Howard Stern loses his job, CBS pays him money, Colbert goes out of business, Adam Schiff might be prosecuted, all the Obama people are being indicted. Trump is winning pretty hard, and that's not even counting the colleges and universities that are paying him, etc. Well, Matt Taibbi had a comment about AI, and he goes, I'm not sure what he's talking about, but it won't matter for my point. He goes, this is why AI is dangerous. Ultimately, it has no ability to assess and detect incorrect media reports. It overcounts the, quote, authority of certain media brands and undercounts primary sources. And then Elon Musk commented on that, which is why I mentioned it. He goes, Elon says, the actual problem is that AI still thinks the news is real. LMAO, laughing my ass off. Yeah, that would be the way to summarize that. The AI still believes that the news is real. I don't know if the news has ever been real. It doesn't feel like it, but I don't know. Well, even though the news is not real, at least science is real. Am I right? Now, aren't you happy about that? Sure, the elected politicians who are supposed to be guarding your money and your safety, they're all corrupt, and that's all a mess. But at least the field of science is virginal and perfect, and it's propelling us forward. Oh, wait, maybe not. Did you know that there's a gigantic fraudulent business in selling people papers that they can put their own name on so that it can look like they've published a lot of scientific papers? And did you know that at the moment there are more fake papers that weren't even written by the author? The author just puts their name on it and they buy a service. There are more fake papers than there are real ones. And that if you were to look at just the real ones, half of them would not be reproducible. All right, let me say it again. Those are two separate problems, but look how big they are when you add them together. Number one, the majority of new papers are from the frauds. It's somebody who just said, well, I'm a bad scientist, but if I had published a lot of things, I could get that prestigious job at the university. So I'll just buy some papers. Now, AI creates them, and sometimes even the data is just entirely made up. So more than half of the new papers are completely fraudulent. But of the ones that are not intentionally fraudulent, half of those will never be reproduced because there was a problem with the methodology, or the data was flawed or something. So, you can't come up with an exact number, but something like 1 in 4 published papers is not complete bullshit. So it's something like 3-to-1 ratio of bullshit to real science. And how are you going to tell what's real? I was saying the other day that nearly everything I learned about nutrition from the time I was a kid, almost everything was fake. Almost everything. I mean, I went through the period of a little bit of alcohol is probably good for your heart. And then there was the upside down, food pyramid, and I could go on. But I don't think, the stuff about carbohydrates probably wasn't real. The problem with fat wasn't real. We live in a fake world, people. So Debbie Dingleberry has been in the news, and she says that the Epstein files, she would be a Democrat, anti-Trumper kind of person. Debbie Dingleberry is her name. And she said about the Epstein files, it's very clear that Trump wants it to go away, and it's very clear that it's not going to go away. Now, I don't know if I'm unusual because I spend too much time looking at the news, but I'm so tired of the Epstein stuff that as long as there's still something happening, as in the government says, oh yeah, we're still vetting some files and there's more to come, as long as there's something coming, I'm just so bored with it that it just doesn't seem like a impactful story that will affect politics. I just don't see it affecting the midterms. Like, why would you punish some unrelated Republican in the midterms just because you didn't like what Trump said, who's not even in the midterm election? So I'm going to go with, I think the Epstein file stuff will have absolutely no impact on the politics of the future. It's boring. It's over. I feel like we know what we need to know, except for the names of the potentially guilty parties, and I don't think we'll ever know them. So, I don't know, Debbie Dingleberry. I feel like Trump supporters are losing interest. I mean, think of the things that Trump is doing every day that you like, and then just imagine trying to kneecap him because there was that one thing. And I know how important it is. I get it. But it is one thing. And would you kneecap him for that? I don't know. I think we're just going to get used to the fact that we don't know everything that can be known. We'll just get used to it. And then we'll move on. That's what I think. Which is not a preference, by the way. My preference would be just like yours. I'm curious. I'd like to know everything that can be known. I just don't think we will. And I think we'll get used to it, not knowing. Well, did you see President Trump's response to Elizabeth Warren and her endorsement of Kami Mamdani, Zoran Mamdani? And I watched it, and I have to say, I was asking myself, is she on drugs? Because her eyes were gigantic and she was jumping around and she looked like there was something going on there. And even Trump commented on it, like I don't know what she was on or something like that. Yeah, but she did look like that wasn't natural. Now, I, of course, mock a lot of Democrats for their terrible approach. But if I watch somebody like, let's say, Randi Weingarten, head of the teachers union, big teachers union, and she's very demonstrative, but she doesn't look like she's on drugs. She looks like she learned to be demonstrative because it got the crowds going. But when I looked at Elizabeth Warren, my first impression was that it looked like drugs. Good ones. Something that was an upper. Or she's, what's that word? Bipolar. Maybe she was having a bipolar episode or something. But whatever that was, that didn't look normal to me. So, and it seems to me that we've got at least 3 examples of people who, when they're demonstrative, you wonder if they're on drugs. Newsom is one. Doesn't Newsom make you wonder, I don't know, that looks like you might be on drugs right there. And of course, Kamala Harris would often look like she was drunk in public, right? Which is not common. It's not like I say that about every Democrat. I don't say every Democrat looks like they're, does Swalwell ever look like he's drunk or on drugs? Not really. Does Adam Schiff? No. Maybe it'd be better if he were. But Newsom, Harris, and now Elizabeth Warren, I do have my questions. And I wonder, is there any Republican that, just to be fair, because it'd be hard to believe it only works on one party, but do you think there are any Republicans that when they speak in public, you ever say to yourself, that looks like you might be a little bit on some drugs? I can't think of one. Can you? I don't know. So maybe that's just a Democrat thing. And again, I don't have any evidence that any of them are on drugs. They just act like they are. Arnold Schwarzenegger says he wants to see what he can do to stop California from redistricting because he calls it evil to take away the power of the people with the redistricting. But Arnold has no say over anything, so that looks performative too. So Trump has threatened Big Pharma up to a 250% tariff. So what he's trying to do is he's got this tariff structure that will increase every year until the Big Pharma moves their manufacturing to the U.S. so that it's stationed here. But in 1 year and a half years maximum, he says it's going to go to 150%. Now, obviously, Big Pharma would hate this stuff. This has been reported in The Hill. But I asked this amusing question once again. Who are the oligarchs? Wouldn't you think the oligarchs would include the owners of the Big Pharma? I mean, they're like the biggest oligarch of all. But apparently, Trump is going hard against the oligarchs and trying to help the middle class or lower income people get more affordable stuff. So is this the oligarch that they're worried about? Or is it the oil companies who wish that the price of oil were higher and maybe the supply wasn't so high? Are those oligarchs all pro-Trump? I don't know who the oligarchs are, but Trump's not making them all happy. I mean, Trump went against the banks recently. What about those oligarchs? All right. Amazingly, have I ever told you that there are some people who, for reasons that cannot be explained, find themselves at the center of history all the time? Have you ever noticed that? I'm one of those people who I could just wake up one day and find myself in the center of some big controversy. Sometimes I bring it on myself, but other times I just wake up into it. And it's always been like that for me. And other people will avoid any, controversy or drama their whole life. And why is that? Well, I bring that up because remember the Doge employee Big Balls? Apparently, he was violently beaten in Washington, D.C. He was, I think he was with a woman in a car, and there was a carjacker, and maybe he tried to resist, so he was beaten by a group of teens, and he was bloodied and got a concussion. And Trump was talking about how things are so bad in Washington, D.C., he might have to federalize it. In other words, take control from the local government. So once again, if it had not been Big Balls, would Trump feel that federalizing D.C. was necessary? Probably not, because Big Balls just would have been another stat. It wouldn't have even, come to our notice. But because it was Big Balls, Trump has a different feeling about it, and now he's taking it to a next level. And wouldn't you love to see what would happen if D.C. got federalized? What would happen if D.C. got federalized and the feds cleaned up crime like in 6 months, or at least got it off the streets? Wouldn't other cities say, did you just clean up crime in 6 months? Can you do that to our city? It might create a model where the feds come in and just get rid of all the corrupt people, and maybe at some point they return control. But you might have cities begging for it. No, federalize us next, please. Do what you did to DC. But here again, Big Balls may have changed the course of history just by being who he is. And by the way, if he got in a fight with several carjackers, he has big balls. I feel like I would have given them the car. I don't know. I don't know the details, though. Would you like to hear the least shocking story in the news? Say yes. Yes, you would? Okay, good. The least shocking story, according to the Brussels Signal, is that Ukraine has discovered that there are 6 officials who are corrupt. And they had some corrupt scheme where they were skimming money off of drone procurement. Okay. Ukraine is the most corrupt country in the world, in the middle of a war, with gigantic amounts of money slopping around, especially for the production and procurement of drones. And now we learn, surprise, that exactly where that giant amount of money is slopping around for the drones, that in the most corrupt country in the entire world, that the people in charge of that were corrupt. I mean, who saw that coming? I'm going to fall out of my chair with surprise. Yep, there are some corrupt people in Ukraine, people. All right, that's all I got for you today. I'm sure there'll be lots more exciting stories happening in the news today. Trump's keeping it interesting. Apparently, he's not taking a vacation this summer, so that's something. And I'm going to talk privately to the beloved members of Locals. And the rest of you, thanks for joining, and I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. But in 30 seconds, I'll be private with Locals.
Today is a victorious day as our relative is here in the flesh.
President Joe Biden commuted the life sentence of Leonard Peltier.
I was really proud because it was a really courageous thing that I think that my dad did.
The 79-year-old has served nearly 50 years in prison after being convicted for the 1975